And then next week we'll be back with even more new exciting content.
Nah,
That's true.
we're done. This is officially the last episode.
Damn it! I just made a promise, Jeremy.
I just started. Well, I'll take my check.
Wait, no one told.
Did you promise him something?
I didn't. Hello and welcome to Learn to Wargame, the audio podcast. I am Brandon, or PG Mulus on the forums, and also with us we have...
Well, this is Jeremy. I go by Lord Fool on the forums.
Nice.
And I'm Parker Guidry. I think I go by Tweak on the forums. I have no idea. I've been gone for so long.
Also with us today we have Jake.
Rene Descartes walks into a bar and orders a drink. After he finishes, he asks the bartender asks him if he'd like another. Descartes says, "I think not," and then disappears.
Yeah.
And I think we've lost Jake from the call, so from now on...
What? You didn't hear that awesome joke? What's the matter with you?
We have to edit all of that out. Do you know how much work that's going to be?
You don't have to edit any single bit of that out.
Okay, so this week we're going to be doing some ADR stuff on the podcast. We've all selected a faction. We're going to share what we would play in a 2-list pair for that in Masters, to where you're using the active duty roster for your faction, which gives you the 20 points of specialists. Does anyone in particular want to go first? Anybody excited about their lists?
I'll go first.
So just share what faction you did, and then we can go into your lists.
All right, so before I pick, I want you to know that I stared at the ADR list for a while, mostly wondering, like what we're going to talk about later, I know, which is there actual viability of running this with ADR over just a regular list? But I decided that Cryx actually has a really strong option, in my opinion, because two of the casters on there are not only some of my favorite casters in the game in general, but they really love flexibility tactically. After I've played them, I realized what I needed was the ability to switch something out, because I had upwards of 15 to 20 points usually that just weren't doing anything for me that game. And guess what? ADR provides that. So the two Cryx casters that I chose were Asphyxious the Hellbringer, who is third incarnation of our Lord Asphyxious, and the Witch Coven of Garlgast. Garlgast?
Garlgast.
Garl.
Come on, Cryx player.
Yeah.
I thought his name was Carl.
What did you say, the Witch Coven of Carl?
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
It's a soft G. And
Yeah.
Gast.
It's like
might
GIF.
be.
It's the Witch
A
Coven of
soft J.
Jarlgast. It's like the GIF. Okay, so the thing, one of the things I like about them a lot is Witch Coven relies heavily upon like a larger force that takes advantage of her amazing feat and debuffs, and being able to switch out how you hit with your infantry is how she benefits from her ADR, the royal we, and Asphyxious loves to have this great combination of jacks and infantry, but sometimes he wants more jacks or more infantry. And so using ADR, you can really load in, play a really heavy jack force out of Cryx. I love Mordenebra. She's my one true love in Cryx, and I'm a huge proponent that Cryx warjacks are great, and Asphyxious can actually run them really well if he has the right matchup, especially if he goes up against hordes. He'll have at least one amazing turn to run all of his warjacks just like monsters. But you won't always have that matchup. So when you don't, how can you still play him if you get locked into a matchup? Or if you know you're going to be strong with your list, or Witch Coven's going to be hard countered, you got to play a little list chicken. You pick Asphyxious, but you don't want to have a monster jack pool. So you can use ADR to kind of counteract that. The actual lists, we'll start with the Witch Coven, my lovely ladies 3, is Witch Coven, Scarlock Tax, Reaper, Double Death Ripper, Styxis Raider Captain, then Styxis Raiders with UA, Banelord Tartarus with Bane Knight full, 2 Warwitch Siren, Gorman the Wolf, and then Styxis Bloodwitch Men with Styxis Bloodhag. And this list is coming out of just a lot of play with Witch Coven. This is the basic kind of list that I've come to after playing them a lot. One of the weird things about Witch Coven that you get used to for people who have played her is she has this really staccato, very predictable rhythm to her game. You're always feeding turn 2. You're always going to be in a certain place turn 2. You need your opponent to not kill you turn 2. That's what she's for. And
it seems to be a lot like Harbinger in that respect.
She is. And with the huge control range, the shutdown, the great control, the ability to buff your really heavy hitters pretty hard, like she plays a lot like Harvey actually. But instead of letting your opponent shoot at you at all, which you could do if you're playing Harbinger, she just shuts it down. So with this list, it just has a mix of, it's got a little armor cracking with the Bane Knights, it's got a little support with the Sirens and the Bloodhags supported by the Blood Witches. It gives you a little bit extra threat that you need your Knights to have with Tartarus, because on turn 3, the Knights need to charge, and Tartarus gives them that extra 2 inches, which is super important, and that reach makes it happen. The Styxis Raiders and Captain actually come out of a decision. I played Raiders all over Cryx, and the only caster that I've ever seen them make melee with 80% of the unit left is Witch Coven. Don't ask me why. They just, giving them stealth, which seems like ridiculously overkill when they already have force barrier, actually provides them the thing that they need to survive, because your opponent has so many things to take care of single wound models, and they're so far forward like they should be, that shock unit that's getting out there. They actually make it there with stealth. You can drop stealth second turn, have them charge with the Raider Captain buffing their speed, or just have them run into melee. You pop feet. Yes, they might be able to attack them, but they're base defense 16 with the feet on top of them, which means it's one of the highest you can get in Cryx. And since Cryx just doesn't have really high defensive values, that higher defensive value is a nice premium. And if for some reason your opponent can't deal with them, the Raiders might be, tapping heavies with their mini feet and Curse of Shadows. Yeah. And you may actually be doing some feedback damage, down the road of the game. And Witch Coven love a caster with like 5 or 6 less health, because that puts them in a really juicy range for a couple Stygian Abysses. And Reaper is a great value for Infernal Machine. It's the cheapest way to get reach, in my opinion, on such a high mat jack in the game. Just such an amazing value to get reach on an Infernal Machine, Terror, +2 mat. Going up to 9 mat means that you can give it 2 focus so we can boost the attack and damage roll if you want a harpoon, and then it's gonna land that smack. You don't have to worry about it. It's gonna hit mat 9. Or it charges in with a really nice speed at this point and threat range, and it's gonna stab a bunch of times, and it's not gonna miss that very first one, which is really important. The Death Rippers, same difference. You go with Death Rippers over one of the ranged attack jacks because they have the ability to arc what you need, and from a long way away. And then the Death Rippers also can get Infernal Machine late game, and they can become little missiles of just absolute terror for opponents. So for the ADR for the list, how do you buff them? The thing that I've noticed sometimes is in this 2-list pair, Asphyxius is not, he's fixing armor a little bit with Scything Touch, but he's not fixing armor a lot, and Witch Coven can actually do a little bit more fixing armor just because they can throw around Curse of Shadows so easily. So, but also, there are ways to take advantage of the feat a little bit stronger on turn 2. The list as is only melee, only except for the couple spells from the Sirens and the Witches themselves, and then 1 Reaper Spear. So something that gives them a little tactical flexibility and something that gives them an extra threat range. So on turn 2, not only are you feeding, but you're also taking out opponents' models and making that attrition happen faster, is Nis Hunters. So to take care of these 2 ideas of being able to deal with an armor skew or being able to get extra threat range, the ADR is composed of 2 10-point units, either a full unit of Nis Hunters, it's a full unit of Nis Hunters and a full Bane Knight. And because every single model in this list has an even point value except the Reaper, basically it's very easy to customizably take points out of the list to fit in that 10-point chunk, whatever you need. You can even fit in both and not tear apart the list very difficultly. I love that the list is only even points because it's really easy to modify for ADR really easily. The only thing you really shouldn't touch is probably the Reaper, because then you're dealing with odd point values. But since you're not switching out heavies, because heavy is not in the ADR list, you're not really running into that. So Asphyxious list is kind of interesting. I really debated with the Asphyxious list, starting it as kind of a skew list and then giving ADR the ability to kind of bring it back to a more balanced list, or starting it as a balanced list and letting ADR be, lead into a skew. I'm not sure if it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I don't know if it even matters. But this is the Asphyxious list that I arrived to, and then I'll tell you what the reasoning for the ADR in a second. So it's Asphyxious, the Hellbringer. He has to have Vociferon, so there's no Scarlock. Cankerworm, Kraken, Necrotech with Scrap for All, Ragman, Styxis Raider Captain, Styxis Raiders with full in UA, the Wither Shadow Combine, and a unit of Bane Knights. So the principal idea behind this list is I wanted some effective infantry modules for him that could be taken out for the ADR. Basically, the choice is, do I want to go whole ham with the Jacks? Am I really scared because my opponent has an anti-Colossal answer, so I want to switch out my Colossal very easily? Or do I want to keep this kind of balanced force that I originally said with his... He loves Cankerworm, obviously. It's his favorite Jack. The ability to move around after attacking is great. Armor piercing on such a small point value means if you'd like to drop Scything Touch, or if your opponent's really stupid and lets you have Ragman Cankerworm at the same time, you're just taking huge chunks out of things they should not be killing. Kraken does a huge amount of damage for the same reason. Ragman plus Kraken plus Carnage plus Scything Touch means the Kraken is doing crazy amounts of damage from a huge distance away with mobility, and very surprising amount of damage the Kraken could put out. And then the Necrotech is there to repair. Cankerworm is healing itself, hopefully, and Kraken is getting healed by Necrotech when it needs to be. Styxis Raider Captain with Styxis Raiders are another great combination with him. I don't think they're invulnerable with Ashen Veil. They're just really annoying, which is the main reason why they're in the list. And if you get some extra attacks and some extra weapon master kind of things, or a few backlashes, more is the better. Bane Knights are in there because as a second wave, they're phenomenal. Your opponent is not interested in killing them. And with Carnage, they can actually get up to high enough mat to reliably kill things, and they have, with reach, enough threat to be too dangerous to ignore. So the ADR list basically allows you to take out some of these infantry modules, or the Kraken Necrotech module for different kinds of Jacks. The entire ADR consists of 2 Stalkers and the Death Jack. So
not what I was expecting.
Right. So one of the reasons is I love Stalkers with him because they get Carnage. They have the Grievous Wounds. So if you're looking at it and you're going, well, I'm not facing a tough army. If they had all tough, then I'm probably dropping the Witch Coven so I can have the Blood Hag. But Asphyxious is allowing me to deal with transfers and the ability to transfer, and I'm getting my Stalkers out there. Asphyxious is an amazing drop against Hordes, especially Beast-heavy Hordes lists. And the Blood Hag can actually lose the Beast-heavy Hordes list, because if you slam it or just do some little damage to it, if you had an AoE, she can die pretty easily. But Asphyxiate, the little guys, if you can manage to pop off their spirit or their mind, they're not actually, and the Stalkers hit them at least once in there.
Yeah, you just walk over and high five them.
Right, and then the Stalker is not dying either. So the double Stalker allows you to deal with beasts really effectively. They're almost like warjacks that are Gormans almost versus beasts. And Asphyxious' feat loves beasts to go super hot trying to attack your high defense guys. The Death Jack is there because He really loves Asphyxious' spell list. He gets everything he wants, which is extra attack if he really needs it. Like he needs it, but he could. Mobility is amazing because what he doesn't have is a crazy threat. And Pathfinder, he has a high threat, but not super big. But that +2 speed and Pathfinder gives him what he wants. Scything Touch he can cast on himself to make huge amounts of hot swapping, and then he becomes way too big for anything to deal with. He actually likes Ashen Veil because he's base defense 13, so he's actually becoming a 15 again against Hordes models. He becomes really too difficult. You're boosting a bunch, which is feeding his feet and doing all these things. Bone Shaker is actually a really nice spell to tag somebody with, to take out somebody, a support model you really need, like a Gorman or a character leader like Jonas Murdoch or Leader of the Nist Hunters. I can't remember her name right now. Just blank.
Selena.
Help. Yeah, Selena Rayfill. So, and Hex Blast. He can cast Hex Blast one more way that you can knock out upkeeps around the field. Like, he loves his spell list. Every spell says Deathjack on it. So, you could, if you wanted to, look at the modules in the list and say, all right, well, I want to go this really heavy Warjack route, so I'm going to take out Wither Shadow Combine, Bane Knights, and Cankerworm, and I'm going to put in the 2 Stalkers and Deathjack. And so now I've got this huge, who's who of great Cryx Jacks being fed by Asphyxious. Or I say, okay, well, I want to preserve my infantry base because I need multiple attacks against his list, so I'm going to take out the Kraken Necrotech, and now I expand myself from 1 great Jack that's going to benefit to 3 smaller Jacks that I'm going to get more work with. And so that's basically the idea. Generally, you leave the Raiders alone because of the great synergy with Ashen Veil. They're your first Ashen Veil target, but it's not necessarily the case. You could also make a case for taking out the Raider Captain, Raiders, and Sea Witch for Deathjack straight up, especially if you saw them running a great gun line or a great spell line, because spells and sprays just rip the Raiders apart before they have a chance to do their work. So you can just drop them real fast, put in Deathjack, and now you're functioning a lot better, because what are they going to do with Deathjack with a couple of magical sprays? So there are a couple interesting little modules in the list that just literally just pop right out and pop right in one of these great Jacks, turning his list into a more Jack-centered list. But especially if you're going against Hordes or somebody who's planning on spending a lot of focus, you can run them all simultaneously, at least one turn, really well. So that's the 2-list pair.
Okay, so you clearly put a lot of thought into that 2-list pair. Do you think you would possibly look into any of the other 2 casters there? You think these 2 casters complement each other really well?
I think the 2 casters complement each other really well because, honestly, I feel like they're kind of reflections of my usual tournament pair, which is P. Denegra and More Tenebra. P. Denegra is a really solid Warmachine drop because of all of the ways she just messes with Warmachine, and More Tenebra is such a strong Hordes drop because of all the ways she crushes Hordes. And this is actually a very similar fashion. The Witch Coven are able to deal with the very ranged attack and multiple attack rich environment that Warmachine usually has. And because they completely nullify a turn 2 play, just take it out, and then they're able to systematically deal with it. And then Asphyxious can just manhandle and refuse to die against war beasts, and so Hordes can struggle. Scabrous and Goreshade are both options, but I feel like neither of them have a really strong ADR idea. Like, what does Goreshade want to be able to switch out for? It didn't come to my mind. I'd have to stare at it. What does Scabrous want to switch out for? I don't know. It really didn't come to my mind immediately. I wasn't looking at it going, what does he really want or need? Because both of them have some really easy combos, but they're cheap and not restrictive. Scabrous likes Crow's Cutthroats kind of for telekinesis. Goreshade likes Reapers kind of for the teleporty trick. But so there's some things that they do, but both of those tricks are very cheap, and they don't require them to overhaul their entire list, or at least a 20-point piece of it, in order to function. So
right,
I think
they're doing a gimmick, and the specialist doesn't help the gimmick.
Right. I don't need a different gimmick, or I don't need 20 points of a different gimmick. Whereas Asphyxious sometimes will run into a situation where he's like, crud, I would much rather have 3 Jacks. And Witch Coven will run into a situation where she'll go, crud, I would much rather have a ranged weapon in the list or another unit of Weapon Masters. And so that is really easy to see where the matchup's going to help you.
Makes sense. All right, so now for the golden question: is this better than standard Cryx in Steamroller? If you had the option to play this over knowing that you could take your standard 2-list pair or anything other than ADR, you think it's stronger than normal Cryx pair?
That's a really difficult question because Cryx is Cryx is so spoiled for fantastic casters and units. So in that way, like it's not like I'm having to cut the potency of the list in half by going from a Denegra down to Witch Coven or going from Asphyxious 2 to Asphyxious 3. It's not like more Denegra to Asphyxious 3, because I feel like Asphyxious 2 to Asphyxious 3 is a completely different list.
Yeah.
It's more like more Denegra to Asphyxious. I don't feel like you're cutting it in half or you're losing half of the potential. So if you would have told me 2-list pair, Asphyxious the Hellbringer and Witch Coven of Garglast, or more Denegra, P Denegra, I'd say absolutely P Denegra. More Denegra is a scarier thing. If I was playing against that, I'd be more scared. If I was playing with it, I'd be more confident. But after staring at the ADR options for a little while and realizing what they could do with them, these two casters in particular, and like I said, this comes from me staring at every different ADR, wondering if there was a reason to use ADR for the casters. I feel like I'm pretty darn confident, actually, that this could be something that leads to victories more often. Something that leads to victories more often than a really strong P Denegra list. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And because you get to make the ADR choice after you see your list, it gives you the ability for a Cryx player to say, well, I see that you now have picked a gun line, so switcheroony, here it comes.
Yeah.
And or I see you pick something really high defense, like super high defense. Well, here, switcheroony. You can make that happen on the fly, which these two casters out of Cryx could really use, I think. Okay. More Ginevra would never need ADR. She wouldn't really want it. I don't know why she would ever have it. It doesn't make any sense to have
especially ADR. Since you can't go into tier with ADR. Like, you could start off with an assassination list, then go into tier if that's not going to work, but you can't do that in ADR. Right.
So, like, they have a couple of fantastic casters. Epic Asphyxious is another great example. Like, his list is more or less set. He doesn't have a lot of variation in his list, and people that do variate are doing it more just because they're bored, not because it becomes better.
Right.
Like,
actually,
let's try.
I did want to elaborate on that a little bit. I feel like Cryx is one of the more explored, in quotation marks, factions. Like, everyone that wants to play Cryx competitively knows what people consider to be competitive Cryx. Like, there's the Scar 1, the P Denegra, the Epic Denegra, the Epic Lich. And that's pretty much like your strong stable, and anything else you play other than that is just basically considered to be, you're only playing this to get outside of the target box, because Cryx are the most teched against faction in the game. Everyone is worried about Cryx when they build a list.
Well, they're also like 40% of the competitive.
They do get played a lot, and because a lot of people, you'll be struggling with like a Mean-Off, like a more technical faction, and you'll get thrusted into this is what my army does, so I just have to be good at playing the game and not about knowing really what my stuff does. Like, obviously there's a difference between knowing it and not knowing it, but it gives you a strong base power level to build on. And I think it's interesting because not only does playing ADR give you the ability to not just play a skew list in the case of like Scar 1, but it also gets you outside of the target box. Like, no one's gaming against Witch Coven. Like, they're not putting stuff in their list going, I'll be ready for Parker's Witch Coven list tomorrow. Like, no one's thinking that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mainly because he's bad with Witch Coven. But
I do have a tendency to let my own Witch Coven getting killed by Tartarus. I do have a strange...
That's true. Your Tartarus has killed more of your own Witch Coven than the enemy Tartarus
any other person has ever killed by my Witch Coven, yes.
That's true. Jake, do you have anything to comment on this Cryx ADR? You also are a Cryx player.
What was the specialist for Witch Coven again?
It was full unit Nis, full unit Bay Knights.
So second unit Bay Knights in there.
And then Nis in case he wants to swap out to a ranged unit.
Transformative. The ability with the Gaspy list to either just yank out the Kraken or to add in more jacks is awesome. And then with the Witch Coven, that ranged element especially like occultated Misthunters or Misthunters protected by your feet, is really good. Plus, Curse of Shadows makes their melee potential even better. So I think that is a really, really cool swap out that you can do to really change up the feel of the list. Because there's a huge difference between having a unit of Bane Knights in there and a unit of Misthunters in there.
Yeah. It instantly feels like a 100% different list. Yeah.
Right. Or dropping out the Styxis and putting in a second unit of Bane Knights really change. If they don't have a lot of guns.
Right.
It's, I definitely like the way that you really transform the way that the list functions. That being said, the only concern I have about the Witch Coven list is I feel like the things that are good against Witch Coven are still going to be good against her regardless of what swaps you make. I know I haven't played enough Witch Coven to really, be able to tell you exactly what that is. My biggest concern would be that it's still a Witch Coven list rather than a new and different list. And there's, you can only do so much with 20 points of specialists. That being said, the only concern I have with the Witch Coven list is that while it does change up the flavor, it doesn't change up the basic protein at all.
I wouldn't disagree. One of the things that when I put out Witch Coven or I say, I'm going to play Witch Coven today, people are like, well, don't get hit with blast damage. I let them believe that blast damage kills Witch Coven, but it doesn't actually happen.
I killed a witch on bottom of 1 with blast damage.
Then you played somebody who had never played them before, did a very bad job, because I've never lost a witch to blast damage. I've never lost a witch to fire damage. I actually never see it occur because they have so much health. Anyway, moving on.
Mark 1 player?
It was amazing.
Yeah.
He had them he literally moved them like barely forward, but he chose not to feat because he didn't think I could really do anything. So he kept them all in base with the Egregore to try and just say, he's like, well, you can't shoot me because I'm stealth, and because I had no way to see through stealth. But I was playing Bart Galleon, so I activate Pop Mini Feet with Dougal, put Hot Shot on the Galleon, it walks forward, and just starts drifting Artillerist blast damage on them. And when it was all said and done, I did 14 damage total to the Witch Coven, and one of the witches died from it.
We'll get to it, but like, for instance, P. Nemo, right? Like, P. Nemo will still be good against Witch Coven, whether there are Nis or Styxis in the list. Yeah. It doesn't. If the Styxis come out and a second unit of Bane Knights go in, P. Nemo's still going to kick its ass.
Yeah.
Witch Coven, one of the things I love about them is that they have these really fantastic matchups against things people count on, and these really horrible matchups to things people never see. So, like, somebody plays P. Fiora, and I'm shaking in my boots because I might just die instantly as soon as he pops her feet.
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Right.
Wow. That's got to be just straight terrifying.
Right. It's just got to be the most horrible thing, but it's P. Fiora, right? And then if somebody has an Epic Iris, I literally laugh so hard at them because literally the rule on my card says you can't take my focus away. 0 ways.
Yeah, all she can do is strip your spells.
Right. Or Piece of Arius, which is a really popular caster. I literally laugh in his face because it says no.
Well, let's be fair. If Sevi, even though that he has a 16-inch control area, if he feats on the Witch Coven, I'm pretty sure he's already been killed.
True.
Like he got the words "feet" out and he died.
Well, he can't be spell assassinated, so there's a chance if he can block charge lanes.
Right.
That's his living factor in that game. You can't.
But the funny thing is, she has 2 ways she has 1 way complete without targeting your stuff, and then she has 3 spells that let me go and ignore intervening models. You'd have to put literally stuff around Sevi, which is fine, but anyway. Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, there are these really weird, like, very far corners, way in the far east of Warmachine and Hordes, that have these really fantastic effects for Witch Coven, but the big prominent things in the game right now, they don't actually scare them at the moment. I've noticed when I take them out into the like modern popular meta, there's not a lot there that's actually working specifically against the Witch Coven's weird thing of 8 health each and all this stuff. Like it's, but there is like in this game things that just hose this weird setup they have.
I guess Fiora 2 would actually be pretty scary as well.
Fiora 2 is also really scary.
If she can just get adrift onto a couple of them, she could just charge forward and guarantee it doesn't go out, and like you lose 2 witches.
Right. The one thing that's nice on it is you have to get that drift top of 2, and I have to let you have it. because if basically you're not usually lighting any of them on fire until turn 3 at the earliest, because how are you drifting when you can't actually target them?
No, right. I understand that. I'm not saying you figured it out there to that, but they're like, I will defend them to the death, because I really feel like a lot of the things that people automatically say don't work on them are actually not the real things they're scared of, but there are some real things they actually are scared of that just take them down so fast. One of the benefits is they can't be one-shotted.
Right. They're amazing in scenario play. People talk about all the time, like, great scenario casters. They're retarded. When you can run a part of your army to get 2 control points and then not lose,
yeah,
like, that's amazing.
You can make an educated decision knowing that I might lose late game, but I'm not playing for late game, so I'm gonna get scenario points now.
Right. I can kill that objective. I can run one of my witches there. I'll cast Occultation on her, make her slightly harder. For one, I'll cast Occultation on her, make you come all the way here to kill her, and if you did, then yes, I only scored 3 points. But if I killed all those things you sent, if I can, because, well, I got all this other stuff around, then you lose. That's a game.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do they work for domination?
They're all independent, but you can only dominate one.
Okay.
So,
but you could have them spread out crazy far apart so that you could dominate the 3 different flags in incursion, to where you have to contest all 3 flags because I can dominate any of them. Stuff like that. Yeah. The only other thing I wanted to say about your Asphyxious 3 list, I did not like your specialist choices. But that's just because what I would have done with it is probably go a more transformative sideboard, where you take the Kraken and the mechanic guy out, and you put in just max dudes, like 3 units of Mechanothralls with surgeons, and that way you can be like, well, I'm going to take advantage of Carnage with multiple attacks on low mat models, and that way, if they build to beat the Kraken, or if because you get to see their list before you ADR, so they show that they clearly brought stuff to kill your Kraken, you just drop the Kraken and bring in just infinite cheap dudes, and you're like, oh, well, crap, like, you know, my defender isn't nearly as good versus that one Mechanothrall.
Right.
You're not wrong. That's a good point.
But I mean, you put thought into it, but I wasn't a fan of the direction you took.
And the thing is, I was thinking, this is just this is not a Cryx player mindset, this is a Parker mindset, is I go, how do I kill it, not do I survive it, generally.
Yeah.
And so I'm going, I want to kill it really hard, and because Asphyxious has mobility and I'm giving it to really fast jacks...
Well, mobility is the best spell in the game, according to Jake.
It is the best spell, according to Jake Shealy.
Those were the exact words I used, weren't they?
Were they in that order, though?
No, they were not.
Okay.
There were some words in the middle of those.
I believe he said best spell ever made. I think that was technically what he said.
Was that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it made spell best ever best? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure that he said Mobility won an Academy Award for best spell ever made. I'm pretty sure he said that.
I think it won the EGOT, is what he said.
An EGOT?
He won all of them.
It won so many
Emmy,
awards
Grammy,
that
Oscar, Tony.
Kanye West came up and interrupted its speech.
He was so mad about it.
He was like, I'm gonna let you finish, but Temporal Barrier is the bomb.
Is Temporal the time bomb? Haley joke.
Oh, that was a good one.
I hate
speaking
all
of
of you.
Cygnar stuff, let's talk about Cygnar.
Yeah, go.
Alright, so...
Beat my Cryx list with Cygnar.
Cygnar's ADR is a little weird, because it only has 3 casters on it, because Constance Blaze just doesn't exist.
That's not true. Although she's really bad in ADR because she basically only ever plays her tier list.
Right, and she's not a very good caster in general, so when you compound the fact that you have a bad caster to begin with the fact that she can't really do anything with ADR...
Let me show you the Khador ADR of one caster. Let me know how you make a good duelist pair out of that.
He is not incorrect.
That's fair.
That's
incorrect. Alright, so we've got 3 options. Cray, Nemo 1, and Striker 1. Well, Striker 1 and Cray kind of, because the way I look at it is, what does ADR actually bring for these casters? And Cray and Striker 1 both offer the same thing with ADR, and that is the ability to choose whether or not you want a Stormall in your list. Because they both run fantastic Stormalls, but there are times when you do not want that Stormall in there. So the ability to choose is awesome, but you don't want that with both of them. So you got to pick the other, in my opinion. So I went with Striker 1 and Nemo 1. I went with Striker 1 over Cray, mainly because Striker does a lot more to support the infantry in his army. So for those times when you don't want to bring the storm wall, you're not feeling quite as handicapped. Cray can still do a lot of cool stuff with some like mass jack loadouts, like having 4 lights in his battle group. But I like the way Striker supports infantry. So that being said, Striker 1 and Nemo 1 is the pairing. So when looking at them, so I was right off the bat, Striker 1 having a Stormwall and ADR. That was just kind of a given off the get-go for me, because Striker 1 Stormwall, the ability to slap Arcane Shield on that thing and have the feat to make it armor 27, or to have it sit back and shoot, allows Striker's Stormwall to control the board almost as well as Haley's Stormwall can. Maybe even better in some matchups. Because for those people that can't really deal with an Arcane Shielded Storm very well, which I don't know who does that these days, but it happens. If you can engineer that situation, it's practically game over from the get-go. So that being said, my Striker list, I put the Stormball just straight up in the Specialist, not in the main list, for the main reason that it is a odd number or an odd point cost. So I felt like I would rather have it in the Specialist rather than in the main list to pull out and have to fit in 19 points back in there.
I do want to interrupt you for a second. I don't know if other people feel this way, but I feel like that has a bit of misdirection to it, because people are going to look at whatever you've written down as your main list and automatically assume that's the list you plan on playing, and that you will change it if you feel it's necessary. So that might honestly affect their list selection as well.
That's true, and could be a positive, because I would prefer to take Striker with the Stormwall if I feel like the matchup allows it. Basically, my default reaction would be to sub the Stormwall in unless I see a reason not to.
Mm-hmm.
So, that being said, the default base list is P-Striker with a Squire and a Lancer in his battle group, because Arcing Earthquake is really good, except for when it's not. And when it's not, you have Specialists. And then from there, the rest of the list is Eris 2, Terran de la Revisi, Ragman, Rupert, and then you've got Tempest Blazers, Gun Mages with UA, Storm Lances, and Nis Hunters. So it's a lot of shooting. It's got some melee potential with the Storm Lances and the Nis Hunters, but it is a lot of shooting. And the reason I like that is, well, Snipe is an amazing spell. It is great on Tempest Blazers, Nis Hunters, and Storm Lances. You've got great targets. And for casters that can be knocked down, which there is a lot of anti-knockdown tech in the game, but even still, you probably have about 75% of the casters in the game that can be knocked down. Being able to pump up Tempest Blazer shots, Nis Hunter shots, Storm Lances, all that good stuff is really, really deadly. So the Specialist is just a Stormwall and a Stormsmith Stormcaller. So the composition of the base list, a couple of things it's based around. Number one is the Earthquake Assassination is one of the heavy focuses of the base list. And that's one of those things that's meant to get opponents on their toes, like right off the get-go, because they'll see stuff like Terran de la Revisi and the Lancer and immediately fear for their caster's safety, potentially setting me up for the Stormwall to be even more effective in the matchup. But if they don't take that into account and they pick a caster that is squishy, then he can assassinate them top of 2 or bot, pretty easily. I've always loved Tempest Blazers with P-Striker. Snipe on those things just kills so many models.
Yeah.
Gun Mages are just an all-around good unit to have, especially with P-Striker, and they're also a good unit to have in Specialist to be able to take out. Storm Lances and Nis Hunters, also really solid shooting units that can also do good melee work, so they're flexible, which is what this list is all about. A couple of the packages that you can swap in and out for the Stormwall to get in there. You could, if you know that shooting's not really going to be very effective, you could swap out Nis Hunters and Tempest Blazers and put in Stormwall and the Stormsmith. You still have the Gun Mages in there in order to deal with like support solos or stealth solos, something like that. But it turns the list away from that that light shooting. You can also swap out the Lancer, and then in assorted other 13 or 14 points, you could take out like either like Storm Lances and Eris if they don't have upkeeps or something like that. You've got a lot of options that you can take out. So that is the Striker list.
So since you're done with the list, have you thought about, I really like the Stormcaller, especially with a Stormwall in the list. Did you ever consider putting in a Goblin Tinker for 1 point, since you're going to be doing kind of an armor skew anyway?
I did look at that, and kind of the conclusion that I came to, and I've played more P Striker than any Cygnar caster, actually, typically playing with Trenchers, but I've played more P Striker than any other Cygnar caster.
You should never admit to that.
Oh, I love P Striker.
P Striker is the bread and butter.
Yeah, I get a lot of assassinations with him.
So. Yeah, not against me, you don't.
That being said, Stormwall generally speaking, the Stormwall will either take almost no damage or it'll be destroyed almost trivially. Mm-hmm. In my experience, they're either going to be able to crack that armor or they're not going to be able to touch the armor. There's very little wiggle room from my experience.
It's a fair assessment.
I was going to say, anytime I've ever played the Stormwall, I've never taken 6 damage. I've either taken all the damage or 0 damage,
or all but one of the damage, and been really happy.
Right. I'm lying. One time I was playing Nemo 3, and he managed to do every box but 2 while it had the upkeep spell that allows me to use all my systems. He was very sad.
Failsafe.
But yeah, failsafe. It had failsafe, and he was very, very sad. But that was it was funny. But yeah, continue. I totally agree, Jake. Very, very, very rarely do you ever see it touched if it's got Arcane Shield.
Okay, so we're all in agreement here. No mechanic. All right,
I mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I'm just telling you what my experience have been like. Other people find that skill 8 mechanics work for them. I find that they do not. So
I'm used to Khador mechanics, so every time I roll an 8, I just literally get on my knees. I'm like thanking Meanoth that I get to make my fucking roll. So, like, I can't tell you how many times I've rolled 5 8s on my repair checks on my Khador mechanics. I'm just like literally just like kicking the table. Like, come on.
That is my striker list. So the other one is a Nemo 1 list, and the goal of this list is to predominantly be a very balanced list, with the specialist being able to specialize it in whatever direction it needs to go. So the base list is Nemo 1, Silas, Thorn, and Dynamo for the battle group, which I think is a really good battle group myself. Arcing Chain Lightning through Thorn is really good, plus Thorn can be deadly with Nemo. Dynamo, I haven't played him yet with Nemo, but I'm really anxious to get him on the table and see what kind of damage output.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
He's okay.
With that 5
with Nemo? Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. You could probably just take a Sentinel and save some points, but...
We were actually just talking, about this before the game. When you read... I feel like Dynamo's card, when you read it, reads like a Star Wars novel. The first time you read it, you're like, wow, this is amazing! And then you read it again, you're like, but, oh, well, not as good as I guess I originally thought. And you read it the third time, you're like, oh, well, I guess not as good as, well, okay. And then you read it the fourth time, you're like, well, crap, what does it do?
Well, so it's gunshots are going to be 13, 14, 15, 16 as they go up.
Unless you shoot something different. Like, you have to always shoot the same thing. Like, he has this weird, I love him, like, I think he's a really strong Jack, but he has these strange caveats that you have to make sure you do, or else these rules fall apart.
Sure. As far as support goes, I've got Tactical Arcanist Corps, Silverline Stormguard, Gaston with a Vanguard, Gorman DeWolf, Alexia 2, a Journeyman Warcaster, and Runewood. So the base list is it's a well-balanced, although maybe a little weak against armor, of a Nemo list. Dynamo may be able to shoot some armor off the table, and you've got some the ability to buff a lot of random stuff up to really high hitting power. Like the Thorn and Vanguard can both kill a heavy dead if they get the proper buff supplied to it, with like Disruption Field from Nemo and either Harm or a Rest Bomb. You can do a lot of really cool stuff. Then, if that's not enough, these specialists are pretty focused around either infantry or Warmachine, anti-war. So, wait, I didn't say that right. Either against hordes or Warmachine. So, the specialists are Black 13th, just a minimum base unit of Stormblade infantry, Eris 1, Victor Pendrake, and a hunter that will go in on the Journeyman Warcaster. So, Stormblade infantry, if you know you're going to be seeing some war beasts, Stormblade infantry and Victor Pendrake can come in, probably alongside them, to replace probably like either Alexia 2 or possibly even Thorn if you know you're not going to get to use Chain Lightning much. You've got a couple different things that you can replace in there. Thorn is an easily replaceable one if you know you're going to need anti-armor. If you know you're going to need anti-infantry, the Black 13th are just amazing choice. Eris 1 is great against Warmachine casters. Just straight up great to having specialists on the back burner. So I feel like the specialists really do specialize it towards one end or the other, whether you're playing against Warmachine or Hordes. Because as a general rule, you'll see more infantry in Warmachine and more beasts and Hordes, and that's what Stormblades and Hunter are for War Beasts, or Black 13th and Eris for Warmachine. So that's Nemo 1. As far as pairing, you've got a couple matchups that I kind of am a little leery of. There are some Khador builds that really have me scratching my head a little bit, particularly Butcher 3 is one that this pair I'm really not too sure about. I feel like it really lacks much in the way of control. I would probably drop Peace Striker into that and just use Earthquake to deny like Madeline Corbeau and Vengeance moves, but I still don't really like it. I don't know. It's got a few random matchups against stuff that's commonly taken that I don't like. But that's just Cygnar ADR in a nutshell. So
yeah, I mean they're fairly limited to casters they pretty much just never play.
Right. Like so Cygnar ADR, I would never take Cygnar ADR. This is what I would take if I did do Cygnar ADR, but you're losing out on the possibility of too much control by not taking one of the Haleys or Siege. You're losing out on a lot by not taking those casters.
Yeah, I think Haley 2 Siege is a pretty obvious list pair at the moment, with how much like Meat Mountain and like Bradigus and stuff like that's running around right now.
Right. Like Striker 1 kind of does some of the similar stuff that Haley does. They both do board control. It's different manners of board control.
Like good and bad.
Right. Like sucky and not sucky.
It's like really good and just fucking terrible.
Earthquake actually is really good board control. It's just half his stack, and there's a lot of stuff that prevents it from happening, whereas Haley just hoses everything in the game. And then like Siege and Nemo 1, they both can do some cool anti-infantry stuff with like Ground Pounder and cool stuff like that, or they can both do some anti-armor where Nemo's got his 5 focus allocation or his, +2 strength on a Warjack. So there's some pills, but it's just strictly inferior.
I feel like I was going to say, yeah, there are a bunch of really easily seen things like Meat Mountain style list, anything with deep health, medium bases, like both those lists are struggling.
Or even a heavy battle group, honestly.
Right. Well,
you start struggling.
Nemo can actually do a fair amount. He does a lot of he doesn't take down battle groups like in one turn, just smack them all to pieces, but he does really consistent damage while denying them getting close to him, like over the course of the game. Like that, he does a pretty good job. But the problem with Striker is the same problem all Cygnar has. All Cygnar hits all the time. They always hit. They never miss. But then what happens after they roll damage dice? Well, nothing. And that's what Striker has to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's one of the problems I've always had with Striker. I like Nis Hunters there for CRAs.
Right.
For that, but that you only get so much out of that.
What's horrible about that is if you roll a 5 on a CRA, you did like what? Maybe what is like 6? Like if you rolled a 5 on a CRA, how much damage is that to Mulg? Like 4?
2.
2. Like like
he literally regens that next turn and laughs at you.
That was your turn 2 shot on one of their heavies. I picked Mulg randomly, but pick a heavy.
Hey, on the plus side, you'll probably hit him even though he's behind a wall.
Yeah, you will.
Sure.
Probably.
Like 12 to Megalith.
It is kind of an irony with Cygnar. Cygnar, ironically, doesn't really have that many boostable POW 12 guns. The fact that the Charger's like their staple Warjack, they still don't really have that many boostable POW 12s.
Well, you say staple. I don't think I've seen one on the table from someone who wasn't playing a 35-point game.
Oh, I just mean in terms of like flavor wise, he's their kind of their iconic
cheap guns.
Gunning Warjack. Yeah.
And also long gunners. There's more long gunners than anything else in their army, but yet I've seen long gunners
gun mages only
all once. Right, but apparently there are infinity gun mages in the Cygnar. actual military.
Well, that's just because they die so often they constantly have to keep training them, so they're out in the practice battles all the time.
I like to imagine that after battlefields, they're just running around frantically trying to pick up the mage lock pistols so they don't have to make more.
You also got to remember that was before Kane started showing up on the battlefield and just killing everybody.
Yeah, and that's Kane is the reason. The reason you take Kane is because you don't really have POW 12 guns.
Yep.
On other infantry models. Yeah, you've got the Trencher Commando grenades, but...
Yeah. What are you talking about? You got like POW 15 guns on like your Stormblades, right?
POW 14.
Sorry.
I will say this, though. Like, Peace Striker does have a couple really interesting places in this game. Like, I think he's a really strong hardcore option if you wanted to play for, Mage Hunter or whatever. He's one of the most amazing in the game because he has a crazy knockdown effect that does 0 damage. Like, he does...
I just can't believe that. Like, I can't believe he's the best assassin in Cygnar, let alone Warmachine.
No, I'm talking about but I'm talking about for me. Like, I'm talking about if you wanted to do it.
Oh, because you're saying that people won't be thinking you're trying to assassinate them.
Oh no, obviously that's what you're doing. The whole point is you only cast Earthquake and you shoot their caster, or else you lose. But because he has his feat, you will get 2 to 3 turns every game.
Yep.
Because he has feat and snipe to do it. So you can try for 3 turns because you have feat and snipe and 2 lancers probably. Like, you'll just try this 3 turns without killing any of his models. So you might get Mage Hunter. Like, it's really super strong. But to set him down to win every game in a tournament, obviously that's not what it does.
Here's how I can say a hell of a lot of my Peace Striker games end, is you get to about turn 3 or 4, maybe even into turn 5. Pretty much my entire army is dead except for Striker and the Stormwall. Got a bunch of stuff jamming up the Stormwall because they can't kill it, so they just jam it up with stuff so it can't go anywhere. And then Striker charges into something, casts Earthquake out of melee at their caster, and then the Stormwall just turns to directly face their caster, getting one little sliver of line of sight off like the extreme left side of its base, and putting their caster in the dirt from,
So you're saying you don't play against many Hordes casters?
Even you get later in the game, they're thinking, oh, I don't need to camp folk.
Are you just playing like the same one guy that has never played against anyone else and doesn't know how camping works?
So let's say you have Saren standing behind a wall with your opponent only having a Colossal left, and he's completely jammed up with multiple beasts. In my experience, most players aren't really going to camp mini transfers. They're going to choose to get more work done.
I want a list of people you play against so I can tailor my opponents in the next tournament.
I'll put it to you this way. The most recent victim to fall prey to that. Well, it wasn't even recent really, because I haven't really played Peace Striker much this year, ever up until I left. But Jeremy Constance. I beat Jeremy Constance when he was on his troll kick, and he even had a bunch of stuff stacked up in front of P. Graham because he's playing Cygnar, right? Cygnar doesn't get down your caster. They, shoot through all of the line of sight blocking models, and then they kill your caster, right? Mm-hmm. So he lined up a whole bunch of stuff up in front of Graham, and I knocked every last bit of it down and killed his caster. People don't really see it coming.
I blame Jeremy in that one.
It's another really interesting, if you don't want to do a Stormwall because you want to boost damage, like the cascading knockdown is another trick people just don't see. 5-inch AoE is something people don't get with that.
It's a sometimes big AoE.
You'll target somebody, it's got to be a little more than 6 inches away from the thing you want. You'll target someone, it'll knock down a bunch of stuff. The thing in the back that got knocked down, you then target with a second knockdown, knocks down that guy, and now you're caster. So, if you get 2 knockdowns off and you have some boostable, then you have some guns that have boostable damage, like the Blazers, you can do, it's a big gotcha, but because nobody sees this guy.
Yeah, it gets a lot of people. When's the last time you played against Peace Striker?
The last time I played against Peace Striker was a battle box game. Okay. I lost that game. I'm going to point out I'm a PG.
Outside of a battle box game?
No.
Because in my experience...
I have.
I have, but yeah.
But the last time I did play against him, it was
people don't realize what, it's one thing to, in the dojo, be aware of everything he can do and prep for him in the dojo, but when you're onto a table, when you're subconsciously, oh, hey, you don't really see the caster so much sometimes when you're playing against him, you see, oh hey, those are gun mages right there. I know how to deal with gun mages. I know how to deal with Nis Hunters.
I will concede he has an above average assassination ability. I refuse to admit it's good. That's where I'm standing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I believe that.
And it's like, I feel like if I have my opponent in a situation where I'm like, well, I know he has an above average assassination potential, but I don't really know what that is, and I'm winning on attrition, like to the point where I'm about to win the game, I'll just run 12 inches away from you and killbox myself. Like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to make it through this round is all I'm thinking.
I will say, you are a better player than most, though.
Yeah.
So, and that is exactly why you don't take
Before you
ADR
say that
Cygnar.
too quickly, like, you should see some of my recent accomplishments.
There's a reason you don't take ADR Cygnar, and that's because he doesn't beat good casters.
Yeah.
Or good players playing good casters, rather.
I think we've talked about how bad Cygnar ADR is enough.
Oh, one point of advice I want to give for P Nemo players. When you feat and you're playing against Krios, stay more than 10 inches away from him.
Oh, okay. Interesting plan.
Because, he can't allocate focus to anything. Oh, and cunningly staying behind the wall does not help you.
I remember the first time I actually played against Epic Sevi, and he was like, "Feet, you don't get focus." I was playing Karchev, and I was like, "Okay, I don't get that. I don't get any focus replenishment." And I was just sitting there. I was like, "I think I kill you." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "Well, I think I kill you." He's like, "How? You don't have any focus?" Because literally, I have no infantry in my list. It's all warjacks. And he's like, "This guy's retarded." So he walks up and he feats on me. I was like, "You don't get focus." Okay, so toe drops. I'm like, "I still think I got you." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about, dude. You got nothing." I was like, "Okay, well, Karshev's going to activate. He's going to Arcantric Turbine and gain a focus." He's like, "What?" So he's going to advance 4 inches and spray Sevi and boost a hit. And he knocks him down behind the wall. And I was like, and now the behemoth kills you. And it literally just shot him to death. And he was like, "I feel so stupid." I was like, "This is amazing."
Oh, that's great.
It was pretty fun. So would you ever consider taking a different combination of casters on the ADR? Or do you think that Striker 1, Nemo 1 is absolutely the best?
I think there is a case to be made for Cray. I think you can do some cool stuff with altering Cray's light jack loadout. Mm-hmm. The ability to switch between like Hunters and Minutemen is because Hunters and Minutemen are both great with Cray, and you can kind of as you please go back and forth between those. I think that's
I think
really
Sentinels
good.
are really good too.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are. I think a 1 heavy 4 light battle group with Cray that you can kind of mix and match as you want is a really good option.
It is cool because even if you do the 1 heavy 4 light with a like couple units of infantry and then put more lights in your sideboard, you can either drop the infantry for all lights or you can drop some lights for different lights.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I've never liked how Cray does for his infantry, though. He's at 50 points. He's a great 35-point caster, but at 50 points, your caster needs to do something for your infantry.
He gives them Pathfinder! And does nothing else for his battle group.
Right.
He blew it all on Pathfinder.
So, do you drop Nemo or Striker to get him in your pairing, in theory?
Striker. You keep Nemo.
Good. Thank God. I thought you were going to say keep Striker. I was like, you're off the cast.
Nemo's the ADR caster that you keep no matter what you're doing.
He's like the Butcher 1 of Cygnar's ADR.
Not even remotely close.
Well, to be fair,
I do like Explosivo's Nemo 1 list. I played against it like 3 times now, and every time I play against it, it just doesn't look threatening until you get on the table, and then you're like, wow, I really don't want to fight this.
That's my favorite part of Nemo. You put him down, he's like, I'm old. And you're like, I can beat an old man. And all of a sudden, wow.
And you're like, okay, I regret this.
Your face. It's really fun.
Oh, man. When he left line of sight with my steelhead rifleman, like, I'll cast snipe on them?
You know,
Did
it's
Nemo
really
die steelhead rifleman?
I left him at 3.
Oh, okay.
Then he cunningly learned to move him away.
It's like Nemo runs directly away from your steelhead rifleman.
It is a ridiculous amount of fun playing Nemo 1 against somebody who doesn't bring any guns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that's so much fun.
It's almost as good as Harbinger. Armchair's like, I am invincible.
Yes. Good times. Good times.
All right.
Well, you gonna share your terrible Magnus 2 list with us?
My God,
No.
why is this the option?
Okay, I'm first going to share
Well,
Butcher 1 of Merc ADR. I tried to go outside the box with this. I did choose to do Merc ADR. This is actually, even though I run a lot of tournaments, and I only run ADR tournaments at this point, so everyone else can play ADR, I don't get to play ADR that often. So the one tournament I played in where ADR was allowed, I actually played the list pair I'm going to share. So I literally went, you think, of course, we know at least one of his casters, but you don't. Because I play outside the box thinking. So my first list is General Ostrom with an
wow. Shocking.
Wow.
Oh my God, mind is blown. Man.
No, surely not. No.
Hey, don't call me Shirley. So my continuing beyond the battle group is Eris 2, Gorman.
Wait. Is Thor in the list?
Hold on, let me get to it.
Yeah,
Alright?
that's one of the specialists.
Eris 2, Gorman de Seawolf. I actually find Gorman de Seawolf is better than Gorman de Wolf because on multiple occasions I've activated him and moved him forward, and they said, "That's Gorman." I said yes, and then I felt much better about my odds of winning.
It was Gorman in disguise. For those of you who don't know, Gorman de Seawolf was a privateer press exclusive to press gangers.
Yeah, if you were a press ganger at the time they decided to release this model, you got one for free for all of the work you put into running tournaments and everything. It was not available to the public.
And if you've never seen him, Google him. He's gorgeous.
He is amazing.
And if you'd like to purchase one, he is only like $4,000 from somebody who's
do not ask a PG to sell it to you because they are not allowed to, and even if they want to, you'd be putting them in a bad spot by asking, I feel. But anyway.
But you can ask them to give it to you as a tournament prize.
You can encourage them to give it out as a tournament prize. They are allowed to give it away as prize support. Moving on, so Eris 2, Gorman de Wolf, Master Gunner Dougal, Thor Steinhammer, Goblin Tinker, Alexia 2, Mistress of the Witchfire, a full unit of Gun Mages with the UA, and a full unit of Nis Hunters. Alright, so going over my list, it's obviously the standard Awesome Earthbreaker tech where you make your Earthbreaker amazing and just kind of follow it to victory. If you've never played... Shut up. I was really good at this.
No, it's perfectly, like your description is just perfect.
Right. Step 1, do not deploy Eris within 5 inches of your Earthbreaker. Also, do not forget to activate her, and then keep her within 5 inches of your Earthbreaker. I did not learn these firsthand, I promise. Moving on. Don't forget to activate Thor on the turn you intend to kill their caster. Any other good points here?
I would just say, well, two things. Number one is Thor should probably be in your specialist just on the off chance that to trick your opponent into thinking you didn't bring Thor.
You say that. People don't read your specialists, I swear to God.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, make them be like, what? You don't have... In their mind, they won't say it out loud, but in their mind, they'll be like, oh, he doesn't have Thorn.
Well,
he doesn't have Thorn.
Yeah, they might just assume he was in the other list, or you're really bad.
Yeah.
Either way.
I'm kind of new at this game.
I only own
Brandon.
solos that are alternate press gang options.
Yeah.
I only own those. No other regular sculpts.
Jeremy, what were you saying?
Next
The other
time
thing,
we go to Omaha, you don't have to be up at 5 a.m.
Oh my God.
They moved it back an hour.
Nice. 6 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Moving on to the specials real quick. I actually never really intend to run the list I built, but it works out better to put Alexia 2 in the main board because she's 4 points and she's harder to fit in some situations. Mainly because, I'll explain it here. My sideboard is 2 units of Horgenhold Forge Guard full and Anastasia Debray and Tarandela Ravisi. Every game, I pretty much expect to bring in Anastasia Debray, unless there's a specific reason I should not. And the reason is obvious for her. But the reason I leave her in the sideboard is because if I put Alexia 2 in the sideboard, which I actually want to be in my specialists, it's really hard to bring in both units of Forge Guard. Because, like, for instance, if I played Rask at the Omaha tournament, it was really good that I brought these Hammer Dwarves. Because I can't kill that many Gators with, Gun Mages and Nis. Like, Nis do okay, Gun Mages don't. So, I swap out 10 points for Nis Hunters and 8 points for the gun mages. That leaves me 2 points floating. I can't bring in Alexia without dropping one of my solos. So by putting her in the main list, I can just say, well, I can just pull out both units of infantry and bring in Anastasia and 2 units of hammer doors, which is actually pretty good against medium base spam. I did forget to mention Ayanna and Holt are in the main list. I didn't scroll down far enough.
I like it.
So it does. I think it does pretty well. Bullet Dodger on Alexia running a hard flank is really difficult to deal with for a lot of people. Same thing with Anastasia. Like, they start shooting at her and just praying that they drift blast damage on her. Every time they miss with stealth, you get to move. It's pretty strong. Also on Eris 2, putting down Eris 2, it's like you can't cast AoE spells at her because you hit yourself and I get to move too. It's really annoying. Other synergies, with Dougal and Ostrom Snipe, you can snipe Gorman and then Dougal double powder ration and artillerist Gorman. He's range 12, rat 7, rerolled deviations. Like, that's really scary.
Cygnar's been doing that for 4 years. Get on the bandwagon.
Yeah, okay. But how long have they been popping and dropping? Never!
Hey, Peace Striker.
No, they haven't.
Popping and dropping since Mark 1.
You're going to compare Peace Striker to Ostrom Earthbreaker.
Oh, God, no. Hell no.
Okay. I was going to say, because when you were talking about how you killed Jeremy Constance with Earthquake, I killed him with Earthbreaker, and he literally just put his dice down and said, it's been a really long time since I lost that fast in a game. And I was like, I told you. So one of the games I actually...
What a horrible story.
I know, it was great. It was great.
It's terrible.
I relish in these stories, sir.
Yeah.
One of the, actually the really important things that happened, I think, at the tournament in Omaha was I played against a Epic Veil player, and he ran a bunch of, I went first. I ran Gorman up in base with my objective, which was a bunker, because I just didn't want them to kill my objective. And he ran and engaged him. I didn't think how fast he could run. I think it was Striders, because they AD'd. He actually engaged Gorman with 2 Striders on bottom of 1. So I was just sitting there forever, so I was like, I really want... And then he just blitzed his battle group up, because Gorman was tied up. And I was like, so I didn't know what to do. So I'm just sitting there thinking. I was like, I got it. I put out all my upkeeps, activate a bunch of stuff. I walk up the Earthbreaker. Earthbreaker shoots Gorman from 3 inches behind him. And it drifts because I miss because he's engaged, facing me. So it's really hard to do anything about it.
I know where this is going.
And because he is in base with my objective and the Striders are in base with my objective, but the objective says friendly models gain girded, Gorman's immune to blast and they're not, so they both die to blast damage, freeing up Gorman, who walks forward and blinds Typhon and a Scythian.
Oh, God.
And then I say, well, I guess I'm going to just kill Vale next turn. And he was like, yeah, there's nothing I can do about this. It was amazing. And then the gun mages basically just killed his angel because they rolled insane. It was a really fun game.
Has this podcast just become the listen to how I...
This is my one good game I had at the tournament. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Oh, my God.
Okay, but for real, I looking through the solos and everything, I can't honestly think of a better combination of models to put with Ostrom. And I don't have a lot of experience with them. I feel like the Mercs solos, when you build your Ultra list, basically in Mercs, you say, I don't care if my other list gets not a single character, I'm making the perfect list. I feel like it is an advantage list versus a lot of matchups. It just depends on if your second list can win the game you have to drop it in. And you will run into matchups you can't win with your Ultra list. I mean, that happens. You can't beat everything. Like, this list does not want to play against, like, Epic Lilith at all. It doesn't want any part of that.
That's the Merc conundrum, is they want to run one of their lists like that, just like every solo that's amazing, watch me do this amazing every solo list, and then you're just, like, staring at it. What do you do? Like, pirates? Right. The other list of pirates?
So, moving on to my second list is going to be Captain Phineas Shea, Tier 3 Pirate's Life.
I called it.
Yep. I don't feel this is the only possible pair for him. I'll actually cover a couple other lists, but this is what I actually played at the tournament. It was Captain Phineas Shea with 1 galleon, of the 5 solos, Bosun, Dirty Meg, Doc Killingsworth, First Mate Hawk, Lord Rockbottom for Pirate's Life. They're all 1 point. A full unit of Sea Dogs with 2 riflemen and Mr. Walls. 2 full units of press gangers, and Walls gives his unit AD, so that's 3 full units of AD. And then the Commodore cannon and a minimum unit of Sea Dogs with no attachments to follow the press gangers around to make sure they get Shanghai if it's available. Then moving on to my specialist, because that was pretty straightforward, 2nd Galleon. So if I need to, I can pull out the chaff infantry and just run 1 really good unit of pirates and maybe a secondary unit and a cannon, and then take the galleon. So I have 2 galleons. I actually, at the tournament, I ended up playing against Carrier Group, which is the Mother Directrix Double Colossal, and I played Shay Double Colossal. It was really close. I expected to just get steamrolled because she has backlash, and I was really afraid of just getting killed. But it actually turned out to be a pretty good game if you play it correctly.
When you switch over from 1 galleon to 2 galleons, do you yank out both units of press gangers, the Min Sea Dog crew, and the riflemen and just play 1 point down?
I pulled the minimum unit of Sea Dogs, I believe, and both units of press gangers. I think that was what I took out. 12, 17. I need 1 more point. You can't take attachments off. So maybe at the time I was running slightly... Actually, yeah, I was running out and hold at the tournament because my 2nd unit of press gangers wasn't done.
Okay.
So I took out a couple different points.
You could just play 1 rifleman and play 1 point down on the base list.
Yeah, I could definitely move the point of rifleman. Actually, I could move 1 rifleman off of the main unit and put it into the secondary unit, which would make it an even 3 units for 1 galleon.
Yeah.
Yes, let's do that. Drop down to 1 rifleman in each. So this is what I played at the time. I don't think it's necessarily the best list to pair with it, just because Pirate's Life is fairly limited in what it can perform in, which it can play into a lot of matchups, but it's really just a skew list of how many pirates can I put into your guys. And I was actually surprised at how well it dealt with medium-based spam because of First Mate Hawk combined with Gang and everything.
It does enough damage to that, yeah.
And putting warders in bags is probably the most fun I've had playing Mercenaries, so...
The only concern I have is just for the whole pairing is against Circle. I don't particularly like its matchups against Circle.
Against Circle, I hope I win the roll to go first and just put so many dudes into their deployment zone with Shay that they can't recover.
Right. Because you wouldn't drop Ostrom because they probably drop Kruger too, and that'd be bad.
I think I actually play Shay into Circle. Well, it depends on what their pairing is. If they have Epic Kaya, then I absolutely have to play Shay. If they don't, then I probably play Ostrom.
If it's Bradigus Kruger, do you think it...
Bradigus, I think I probably play Shay and lose. I don't think I have a good answer for Bradigus.
I feel like a Bradigus Kruger combo would be really hard with this.
Well, right. I mean, Bradigus Kruger is really annoying. I mean, what do you pick to play into that? Like, what's that combo's terror matchup?
I guess you play
you play Hail Hydra unerrated and just go for the win. I don't know,
just lock yourself into Veil 1. Sell Mercs by Legion. Lock yourself into Veil 1.
Okay, so that was what I played at the tournament. I think it was a good pair. The Shay list performed better than I expected into the matchup I did not expect it to win against. I do feel that obviously you're going to take Ostrom in a 2-list pair. As far as other options, I've built 2 other lists. I actually like my Fiona list a little bit. It is basically to fix your medium-based spam drop, but I think Shay can play into that, at least on a scenario game, if not an attrition game, against almost all the medium-based spams. The one you probably have the most trouble with is probably Fists of Halak because of all the... It depends on how many Incendiary units they take, but I think potentially you could have a game against that. My Fiona list is Fiona the Black, Silas Vanguard, Lord Rockbottom, Bosun Grogspar, Doc Killingsworth, and First Mate Hawk. So it's basically the pirate solos. Tarandela Revisi, full Nis Hunters, full Long Gunners, full unit of Sea Dogs with walls and 3 long riflemen, as well as Alexian the Risen. So just more dudes, and she can kind of get up there and try and be annoying and help finish things off, because she can... Between the Risen charging, double shots from the long gunners, Nis putting in extra single shots, the pirates go in with all having 2 attacks between their pistol shot and their sword attack, and all that I killed Adjudicator in one turn with Affliction, and I broke armor 3 times. Like, you can do massive number of hits on things, but that has to be able to win you the game. So she is she's more limited than Shay in her drops, which is why I decided not to take her to the tournament. I do think she has game versus a decent amount of things, though. I think she's missing about one thing before she could become a really competitive caster. And then Magnus 2 is the worst thing I've ever played, because I've never played it. The Magnus list I built, which is just laughably bad, but I'm going to share it anyway. Magnus,
not that bad.
Magnus the Warlord, Tier 2, Magnus's Agenda. Magnus the Warlord, 2 Renegades, and a 7-point Mangler for tier. Orin Midwinter and Kale Baylock for solos, because they kill infantry. Then Crow's Cutthroats Max, because they're amazing. Idrian Skirmishers Max with UA, because Calamity and Prey means you're Rat 9, POW 15 without aiming. And then Long Gunner Infantry. And that's the entire list, because everything in here is like fucking 10 points. I think this list would be hilarious to play, but I don't know that it's actually good, and I just threw this together today, so... there's probably a much better Magnus 2 list that, even in that tier list, and there's a better tier list to play him in, so... And I don't know why I would want a tier list in my ADR, but oh well.
We have had a request for more battle reports.
More battle reports?
With Magnus.
With what?
Yeah.
No one asked for you asked for that. That does not count.
No, it was not me.
Did you pay someone?
No.
I don't believe you. Do you guys have any questions about my pairing? Other than why it's so bad?
I guess
I was going to ask that exact question.
yeah, just like was this I mean, I know that Ostrom actually does give you something. Like ADR Ostrom is actually pretty cool because he gives stuff to just all stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not one Merc unit that doesn't... I don't know if there is one Merc unit that doesn't get something from him. Like, and even Dwarf Jax actually gets something from him with the feet and all his cool buffs. So, like,
right.
Ostrom is, I think, like an amazing ADR caster, obviously.
Yeah.
But we get the fact that you get one great ADR caster can't be worth 3 just not ADR casters.
Right, and I will bring up that Divide and Conquer is no longer a normal, like, standard modifier to a tournament. The tournament is only ADR if the TO wants it to be. Or, excuse me, is only Divide and Conquer if the TO wants it to be. But
Right.
Masters specifically is always ADR unless the TO overrides that rule. So that means by playing the ADR lists, you're guaranteed to have to drop your second list at some point.
Hold on, you just said it backwards again.
Did I say it again?
said-
I'm sorry.
Masters is always Divide and Conquer?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? Okay.
Yes, Masters always. So if you're playing ADR, you're guaranteed to have to play both lists at some point because it's going to be Divide and Conquer as well. ADR and Divide and Conquer go in the same packet. So,
and that seems to work very much against this.
Right. I think
idea.
it's actually to specifically encourage you to not do the Ultra list. But
Right.
I mean, Mercs does it so well. They can build their ultimate list so well that it's literally probably a 90-10 drop. Like, you could not look at your opponent's list. Like, you don't know what faction he's playing. I'm dropping Ostrom. Like, and you could have a 90% chance to have a good matchup. Like, that's how strong that list is. He has silver bullets, but it's just like Bradigus or something like that. And so your specialist can cover a lot of the medium to not really good matchups, so they really need a silver bullet to stop you, which will happen, or they just need to be a better player than you. That's something too. But then your second list is like, I think Shay is probably the best choice, but it's all about, if you've built a better third or fourth list than I did, then maybe that's your best choice. I just feel like Shay has the best game versus a lot of stuff. You can get into that situation. It's like, well, I really want to drop not Ostrom so I can play Ostrom in the finals. I think Shay is probably the best of the 3 because he can play against the most things and have, like, he can just accidentally win on scenario because he has Godspeed and Coup de Main. Like, that can just happen.
So you think Shay more so than Texas?
He's not in the ADR.
Is he not?
No, it's Magnus 2, Fiona the Black, Shay, and Ostrom.
Oh, God.
Come on, man. Pay attention.
I've been lied to. I've been lied to my entire life.
What would you need specialists for in a faction with 9 models? I swap out these gators for these gators. Like, thanks, guy. What are you doing? So, The question I think we're to now is it worth playing Mercs in ADR? I think that question is there is no answer. Basically, it's a complete opinion-based thing. If you want to go, I want to have a super list, like the Haley 2 of my faction, and play it as many times as I can, and then play my off list whenever I think I can get away with it, then you should play ADR. Right. If you are of the mindset where I want to have two solid choices, because honestly, what is Ostrom gaining? Ostrom is gaining, he'll probably go from an 80-20 caster where it's like 80% of the time I have a good matchup to 90% if you move to ADR. Is that 10% with your super list worth your other list dropping from about a 50 to a 30? Like, that's kind of the choice you're making.
Part of it might also depend on and this is kind of a crappy thing to say, but might depend on the field that you're playing in. So, for instance...
that is very true.
If you're going to, let's say, Warmachine Weekend Homecoming here in 2 weeks, and you're going to have a field of like 128 players, and the entire event is Masters DNC, well, you might very well play ADR Mercs because you're probably going to get a less... I don't want to say a bad player, but you'll get a player that maybe you can get away with sneaking one of those poor captures in there, and then for the rest of just all other 5 rounds, you can just play Ostrom.
Yeah, I think at a smaller venue, so you're saying that it's better in a larger environment to go your super list better, like do ADR in that situation?
Yes. And then if you're playing in, like, let's say you're playing in the Warmachine Weekend Invitational, where there's nothing but sharks in that pool, you don't want to be doing that because...
Okay, so you're not saying necessarily it's the number of people, but the quality of people. So if you think, basically you want to hedge your bets that you get an easy first round is kind of like... I know you're not saying that there's bad players and there's good players, but that's kind of what you're saying is, in the early rounds, I'm trying to get a matchup.
Right. You're hoping that rounds 1 or 2, you're getting a less experienced player that you can sneak your off-listed by.
I think, actually, it also depends on, like, exactly who shows up, but I think smaller events are even better for ADR like that, because of, let's say we get 8 people, well, 8 people, that's 16 lists. I'm playing 2 of them, so that means there's 14 lists in the room other than mine. They have to have the silver bullet in one of those, and I have to play them in 3 rounds.
Right.
Like, that's really unlikely. But when you go to 128 people, you're playing 6 or 7 rounds. 7 rounds, someone you play, now you're playing against 14 lists, not against, 9. Like, you have to be really careful.
So what is Ostrom's silver bullet?
I think Shadow Pack or natural stealth casters, like in combination with stealth heavies. Like, if you had Gorshade casting Shadowmancer, like, I can't deal with that. Like, Ostrom can't. Like, I can try, like, literally my options would be, I'm going to drop the Earthbreaker for 2 units of Hammer Dwarves, and then I'll drop my Mechanic and bring in Alexia. Like, I'm just going to put dudes on the table, but I can't even legally do that because I'm not spending my Warjack points. Like, I can't do anything. I can't kill your heavies, I can't kill your caster. Because you send in heavies, they do some work, you port them back, and you stand in the zone. I'm like, well, if I move up, all my little dudes die. If I move up my Earthbreaker, it dies. Because it's only armor 20. Like, I don't know what I do against that. Like, I would literally, if you were playing that, I would drop Cryx. Or I would drop Shay into you. And just, as we're Witch Coven, I think I could probably get away with dropping Ostrom. I don't know that it would work, but I'd probably try it. Because I can probably kill your list. Because all I need to do is get one lucky, like, Eris 2 walks up and removes stealth, and I think I could have a game.
Eris 2 what?
Or even
Eris
just
True Stripping Occultation.
Or even just using, because you've got gun mages in the list. You're over 2 rounds, your gun mages can deal with the Styxis, and then from there the Earthbreaker takes care of business.
And also, if you can just get the Sea Witch dead, then you can kill the rest of them with the Earthbreaker.
Right.
But I mean, aiming gun mages can probably get a decent amount of the Styxis dead.
The Styxis are going to die.
Because they're 16, so you need 7s. And then if they actually get to you, then the NIST can probably clear them off a little bit, because they only need 8s to hit. And you get 10 attacks, probably clear out. I mean, also, if you get a command check on them with Alexia 2, they might fail. Like, there's a lot of ways you can mitigate the Styxis.
The NIST actually kind of throw a wrench, but, like...
Oh, they're annoying.
I was going to say, the NIST actually helps with somebody camping behind a troll wall or in a in a foxhole or something like that. Or just finds a wall on the terrain map. You just
Or like if you actually get paired into Bradigus, then they can kind of help pick off some treemen to try and get rid of the forest, so you can actually start playing again.
So if Merc runs the super list, then ADR really helps them. But is there obviously a better Merc pair then?
Is there a better Merc pair? There's obviously not a better list than Ostrom Earthbreaker in Mercs at the moment. That being said, I really enjoy playing Bart. I think it fits my playstyle more, and I really enjoy playing Bart. And I've had a lot of fun playing slightly different Bart lists, and every incarnation I've enjoyed. And at the same time, I like Shay because, it's a skew list, but, that only gets you so far. I really enjoy Durgan. I enjoy Gordon. I like a lot of the Merc casters, so I would probably play, if ADR was available, which is, let's say, 1 in 4 to 1 in 3 tournaments, I would probably play ADR when it's available for a change of pace, and I would probably play out of ADR the rest of the time and be happy.
That's fair.
Since you've heard the 3 lists, I wanted to briefly mention the other ADR factions I thought have just really strong ADR without
Trolls.
actually making lists. Trolls.
Oh my god, Trolls.
Very strong, like just nutty dumb strong, actually.
I was originally going to pick Meanoth as my ADR faction to do, and I looked at their list of casters, and it's like, I want to just throw up on my phone. Like, this is so boring. And then I was like, well, I'll do Khador then. And I looked at Khador, and I was like, do I really want to build a Strakov list that's like, Ruin, Beast 09, Ulans, Go. Like, I didn't want to do that. And I was like, because I actually really like building Butcher 1 lists. I could build Butcher 1 lists for hours. Like, there's so many.
He has infinity options. And so ADR with him is amazing.
Yeah, you're just like, I could play both of these lists. Like, it's like, that's what he does. And then, it's like, well, I could play Zerkova. Oh, there's no Grolar yet, so she's shit. Like, well, then I could play that. Nope, she's shit too. Like, it's so bad.
The one of the ADRs that actually was really excited me when I saw it, Legions. When I played Everblight, the only Everblight I ever played, I only played Bethane's Tier 4 and Absalonia's Tier 4. And so when I saw it, I immediately was like, ooh, I could just play my list and call it ADR. But the problem with it is both Absalonia's and Bethane's tier lists, which are super duper strong in my opinion, especially when paired together, don't need ADR. Like,
they're
they don't
really restrictive in self-building.
Right. So, like, what would you do?
It's like Lich 2 with ADR, and you're like, so...
Actually, the one thing that I did think actually would be useful that I thought about is that Bethane's, she does not have a lot of points for beasts, but she doesn't really have one beast she loves, except for Bethelgor. So, like, having the option to choose her beasts, like, basically just gives her utility with something like a Seraph to make sure she gets the assassination off because she sees it coming, or could give her Ravagors for some table control, or Scythian because she thinks she's actually going to have to scrap, or, she had lots of options with that, but the problem with it is you would just put in 3 different heavies or something in your ADR and just switch it out for when you wanted it, and that's the only thing you're really doing is one heavy for a different one.
You're just tailoring against certain things.
Right. And Absalonia is a similar thing, but Absalonia also plays the same thing almost every time with very little permutation. So the funny thing is, after I looked at those 2 casters and I was excited about it, I immediately switched to Lilith and Thagrosh actually can run wildly different things based upon 20 points.
I was actually about to say, it's like, if you were going to take those 2, I will gladly take the other 2.
Right. Because the other 2 actually, like Lilith being able to put in something like the Throne instead of a heavy, all of a sudden does completely different stuff. And Thagrosh being able to put in another unit of War Spears or take out a unit of War Spears, all of a sudden does completely different stuff. Like, there's a bunch of very interesting things those 2 can do. I thought the Legion, like, Absalonia and Bethane are a really strong list pair, but don't really benefit from ADR. Lilith and Thagrosh could be a strong list pair and really benefit from ADR. So I thought, like, Legion was actually the one that satisfied me the most. If somebody was like, I really want to play ADR and I don't care how much it costs, I thought Legion actually has the strongest one, in my opinion, of all the factions. But
I think it's funny that you believe that, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. And I don't think anyone's going to play Legion ADR.
No.
Because they're so blind. Like, I used to feel the same way about Cryx. I was always like, why don't you take these things? They're amazing. And, like, there's like, oh, just to Texas and Bay Knights. Like, that's all you need. Like, it's like, I always feel that way. Like, it's like, God, look at this caster. This caster's broken. And he's not even this good. And it's like everything in Cryx is broken. So it's okay that they have these things. And it's like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah. Bethane is busted as all shit. Like, I think
no, she has extremely powerful effects. The reason I don't like her is I feel like her list just straight builds itself on it. It's like Scar 1. It's like, hey, guess what? 30 Bay Knights, 30 Mechanic Thralls, 2 Stitch Thrall units, and 2 Helldivers. Like, guess what? I can play Scar. Like, congrats. Like,
right, like
that's the same reason. Like, it is a very powerful list, and it's kind of like Ostrom. It's like, you're going to have a lot of good matchups, but the bad matchups are going to be really bad, and it's basically not going to be playable. Like,
the weird thing, when I played Bethane, because I was pretty hardcore for a while, I was so hot for Bethane, I stared at, like, there are units and things that do okay, but if you didn't count Banishing Ward, because I didn't really count Banishing Ward, because that only protected one unit or model if they cast it and upkept it.
Yeah.
There is 2 guys in the game that actually just completely hose her, and it's P. Hexy and P. Gareth. I say P. Gareth, the only Gareth.
It's P. Gareth.
So, yeah.
I have it on good authority. There's about to be a second.
Yeah.
Fiora 1 also has Hexhammer.
Wait, does she?
Yeah.
The one that makes you take a No, what I'm talking about is Vampiric Harvest or whatever it is. The one that says whenever a model casts a spell in their control range, they automatically take a point of damage.
That's also on Gorshade 2, Psychic
Fiora
Vampire.
1's got the one that makes you take D3.
Oh, okay.
Oh. But,
yeah, so take that. Fiora 1 hoses
also Bestial
and Bethany.
Oh no! Fiora, the natural predator of Parker.
Also Bestial on Chromac, or just Meanoth. I'm pretty sure it's just like, they stamp that on you as they're painting your armor. They're like, Spell Warded, Spell Warded, Spell Warded. I'm going to play Butcher 2 into you every time.
But Bethane blows up the world. Every time I ever played her, my whole army was about 40 points of the list is on their side of the board, turn 1, and then turn 2, I blow up the world.
Sounds about right.
It's a heavy Alpha Strike list.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to put you in a countdown to death clock, and the countdown is 2 seconds. 1, 2, it blows up. Did you disarm it? It blew up.
Yeah.
But if you did disarm it, that's it.
Shit went bad.
Yeah. But obviously, trolls, I say Legions is really maybe the strongest. I should have said strongest. I said very strong, because trolls is dumb.
Right.
Dumb.
Trolls are just ridiculous. Like, they're like, which faction is going to be the best this year? And it's like, I feel bad playing my trolls, specifically because I feel like I'll be a bandwagon person, even though I played them before I ever played in a tournament. So, just going over them real quick, we did Cygnar, we talked about which ones were available. Protector of Meanoth gets Resnick 2, Severius 2, Testament of Meanoth, and Thyra. Khador gets Butcher 1, Cryx gets Asphyxius 3, Gorshade 1, Witch Coven, and Scabrous. Retribution gets Gareth, Kaelissa, Ron, and Vyros. Convergence gets Aurora, Axis, Iron Mother, and Forge Father Syntherian. I actually like
everybody except one.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone except their obviously best caster of Father Lucan. I feel like they will use ADR in much of the way you were going to use ADR in your tier 4s, where they're just going to tailor which jacks they take based on what they're playing against.
Oh.
And then Mercenaries we covered. Trollbloods is Doomshaper 2, Gunbjorn, Hunter Grim, and Jarl. Circle of Ouroboros is Cassius, Grail, Kaya 2, and Mosar, which is Kaya 2. Scorn is Hexeris 1, Mordekar, Morgul 2, and Naresh. Legion we covered, and Minions is irrelevant. Anybody have any questions? All right, so there's no questions. Or did we lose them? Okay.
Second caster with Cygnar ADR, other than Nemo 1.
Would
it be
Cray
that difficult
than
to
Nemo
put?
1.
You think so? I don't know, in ADR. I think Nemo 1 gets a lot VR.
The story, Brandon, I thought the way you related to me before is ADR was not like, let us choose some lower casters that would make the game more interesting. It was just, these are the 4 that don't show up, these 4 go.
Right, I think that from what I understand is what one of the gangers or the staffers actually said. They looked at tournament results of what casters showed up, and they literally just took the bottom 4 from each faction of appearances in major tournaments, and they said, these are the 4 that are least played, put them on ADR, and that's literally what they did. They might have skewed it a little bit and looked at numbers like, that's probably because we're already at such a small sample size, like, this guy showed up once, and this guy didn't. Like, they might have bumped him for the guy that showed up once. Like, when you're that close, like, it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, oh, look, Chuck played fucking Constance Blaze. That skews the numbers because one person played her.
So wait, you're telling me no one has taken Aurora and Axis?
No, someone's definitely taken Axis. But guess what? Everyone had Father Lucan as their list pair that played these 4 casters.
I have a hard time believing that, and I'm not saying that's not the case, I just have a hard time believing that Ron was taken less often than Raven, or like
no, yeah,
Awesome
I don't disagree with that. And they clearly, like Butcher 1, they clearly looked at it and was like, no one will play this, and just took someone out and plugged in a caster they thought would save the group. Like Butcher 1, like clearly Karchev was taken less than Butcher 1.
Were they probably going the 3/4 and then inserting one in there so that you would take 80.
They probably looked at it and said, like, no one will play Karchev, Harkovich, Zerkova, and Strakov. They're like, so take Karchev out and put in Butcher. And they're like, that will at least give them a reason.
But then who actually made the decision of, well, no one's going to play Constance, Cray, Stryker, or Darius. And so...
Let's take Darius. It's the same person who cuts their models and decides where the mold lines are. Fuck that guy. I swear that guy is the cousin of someone really important because he would have been fired years ago.
You're right. Actually, Darius does see play every once in a while. Darius Stormwall is a...
Right, because remember, when they were taking these sample numbers, Jay had just picked up Darius and was playing the double Stormwall Darius for a while. Like, you gotta remember stuff like that. Like, this was a small sample size of a small time frame.
But Kylissa Ron is a very, very powerful combination, but also something that skews them is their, 3 casters that are on this list?
Well, it's Raven, Vyros 2, and Assyria are not on the list.
So there's you have to put more than half of them on the list.
But from what I understand, when they change these, they're going to basically look as is ADR helping this caster? And they're like, yes, this caster has noticeably seen a rise in play. Well, maybe we should leave them on. Or basically, are they overpowered? No, they just get more play now. Let's leave them on there because it's clearly making a difference. As where it's like, now moving on to Magnus 2. He's still fucking garbage. Or whatever the term they use at the place is. Like maybe there's just fuzzy, that's what they say instead of fucking terrible. So they take him and they put him in the corner and he needs an errata or we should just not expect him to see play. And now they know. It's not that he just doesn't have the tools most of the time, he just doesn't have the tools. So there's a problem with this caster. It is broken. It does not function properly. So it's then they can look at it and say, maybe we should errata him, or maybe it's just info for years down the road if we ever do a Mark III. And then they come out with a new cat, and they're like, all right, well, now just pull the next one up and put him in his place. And they'll just keep doing that until they figure out who needs to be fixed and who's just slightly behind the curve.
I remember E-Magnus. I remember E-Magnus in Mark 1 was one of the rare casters that was balanced. I always thought he was just... he was one of the only ones that came late in the game cycle that was this guy's actually pretty fair. And then for some reason they just broke his legs again with the Nerf bat.
Let's just drop an ironclad on him. Oops.
Right. He was the biggest head scratcher because everyone else they hit with the Nerf bat was that deadly, and they just went a little bit over. Right. But they really were that deadly. Like Darius, for example. And
oh my God, Darius. Darius was so night and day different in Mark 1.
Yeah. But for some reason, I thought it was very arbitrary. I like to think it was they were aiming the bullet for Epic Asphyxious, and it just
missed.
Just like Coriolis effect took over, it dropped and hit Magnus right in the temple. Like, I don't understand.
Well, like, okay, so if people don't know at home, I have to bring this up. In Mark 1, Darius, when he feated, instead of repairing Warjacks in base with half-jacks to full, he could either do that or bring back a wreck marker that was in base with one of his half-jacks to full health of its original starting jack. So, if you ran the double Stormwall Centurion list now, where you're like, one gets Arcane Shield, one gets Fortify, and then the other one just hangs back a little, and they just move into the zones. You're just like, if you ran that, and you could bring them back, that list would be played right now. We have to admit, like, that would be the list to beat for a while in Mark II, right?
Yeah. And that was, like, in my opinion, that was the least of his tricks. Like, that was amazing and overpowered, but he also could throw jacks, give them, like, an extra 6 inches of movement, because you could place with the crane just anywhere touching. So you could grab somebody from behind you, put them the 2 inches and then the length of their base in front of you. Then he could cast Full Throttle. He also had a spell. It was a POW 11 spell that if it killed a Warjack, it exploded and it dropped an AoE 4 and did a POW 14 damage roll to everything underneath the AoE.
And his half-jacks were considered jacks.
Yes, his half-jacks considered jacks.
Run a half-jack, shoot it.
Right. You could not swarm the list. It was physically impossible. And he was putting mines down because his steam cannon used to, like, if you missed, the steam cannon didn't blow up. It became a mine in the ground.
God.
And there were so many, like, super dumb things that made him impossible. He remains to this day the only caster I've ever played. I think I at least 2 tournaments and a couple other just practice games that I never once lost with ever for any reason. And I refuse to play him in Mark II, because I will keep the streak alive.
You're like, that is terrible. I prefer Sorsha when she could Windrush 3 times.
That was fun.
No.
No!
It was also dumb when, way back when P. Haley, as soon as you touched Temporal Barrier, you immediately started halving your speed at that point.
Oh, so it was like difficult terrain.
Yeah. It was the dumbest thing. Because it was so stupid, because it literally brought the game and your models to a metaphorical and physical crawl. Like, it was
great.
Dumbest.
It literally brought them to a crawl, so you're saying that the models were actually, like, on their hands and knees crawling?
No, you were, like, on your hands and knees groaning with your back, just, like, dying because you had to bend over and so freaking slowly, like, move these models and try to remember how far they had moved before they touched Temporal Barrier. And
that would be so terrible.
It was just so awful.
Yeah. And what was the other one? I was going to bring up something else. I like the new point system they have now. It's a lot easier to build lists. I do think that you get trapped at the point where it's like a model like, what's a good example? What's a good 3-point model that would totally be taken if it was 2 points?
A 3-point model that would be taken if it was
like
2 points?
an Ogre and Boker. It's like, It might not really be worth 3 points, but it's probably too good for 2. Like, it's clearly better than Gorman. Like, it can't be 2 points. So, it should probably be 3. And it just lands in that limbo area where you're just like, I don't know where we could really put it.
I feel like our conversation is quickly...
No, yeah, we've definitely covered ADR at this point, and we're just kind of speculating and recalling.
Gudrun would probably see more play if he was 2 points instead of 3.
It's probably 2. I think Gorman would see more play if he was 1 point.
Yeah.
That was a good silence. Yeah.
You know what's funny about Gorman? Even though he is just got to be, like, he's got to be up there for best 2 points, like, you can spend in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how rarely I see him.
I know. It's because the character restriction has just built this mindset into people that they can't play him because he goes in the other list. Even though the list they're playing is their A list.
Yeah, it's very strange how often I don't see Gorman and I don't have to worry about him. Because what's funny is, like, I'll often sit down in front of Gorman and go, okay, if I don't kill Gorman, I think I auto lose. And, like, that is how hard Gorman can win.
Yeah.
Like,
I used to be a faction purist. Like, I would not take mercenaries in my Khador list because I was like, why? If I want to play mercenaries, I play fucking mercenaries. Like, that's how I thought of the game. And it's just like, they can't be better than Doom Reavers. Like, I have Doom Reavers. Like, this is how long ago that was. And I started playing Gorman after I actually bought mercenaries. So I was like, I don't feel bad because I actually play mercenaries. So I feel like it's okay. And that's how I started playing mercenaries. And like, even so, like, I didn't start putting Gorman into random Khador lists until 6 months ago, probably. Like, it's been a long time. I picked up Eris 2 because I finally admitted that Khador had a problem with upkeeps. Like, but that was literally years into playing the game. I just refused. I don't know why.
And now I feel like you've come full circle because you suggested that the best way to play.
That's because Cygnar is even worse than playing mercenaries. Like, you might as well literally be playing just, like, pacifists. Like, that's basically where you've resorted yourself to.
I think the faction could be called Cygnarinaries.
You should literally be, like, if the faction was called Swans and, like, all the fluff was how terrible they were, I think it would actually be a better game. Because I hate Cygnar so much because I just think they're stupid. I don't even know why. I'm just like, look at Khador. They're so cool. And I look at Cygnar, I'm like, that's so lame. Like, I don't even know why.
Well, it's because they're chock full of hippies now.
Yeah, it's just hippies and hippies.
Yeah.
I really don't agree or understand anything about what you just said.
It's just fluff. Like, I've never been a fan of the sit back and shoot people. And then I've never been a fan of, like, the French. I don't know what Cygnar's supposed to be other than, like, just...
They're English.
They're English. Even worse.
Yeah.
Protectorate is French.
Cygnar is like Imperial Britain mixed with Manifest Destiny United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so... But everything they do just seems to be, like, the least cool way to do things. I don't know. I like the lightning theme. Like, I actually thought about buying into Cygnar for a long time just to buy, like, Thunderhead and, like, all, like, Nemo and all of the electricity stuff, because I like the electricity theme. But I just, like, and then it's like, here's some trenchers and some long gunners and some anything other than storm this. And I'm like, that's so boring. I just want to rip my eyes out of my head. Like, I just can't do it.
I'm actually not going to lie. I love Cygnar and I'll always love them, but the thing that I play when I put down Cygnar is just the storm stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I'm playing somebody, even when I'm playing somebody like Striker 3, where I know I'd probably be better off playing this, I still play the storm stuff just because I want to play the storm stuff.
Yeah. And there's no question, like, clearly Mercs meld well with Cygnar. But that's almost due to a fluff aspect of the game where they're like, they're the most stable country that is the most diplomatic. They would be willing to hire mercenaries and not kill them after the job is done, so it makes sense that they work for you.
You win with money.
It's like,
continue.
Like, let's work for the Menites. They're cool guys. They have reason. And then you go to Menot, and he's like, yeah, we're going with Resnick. And he goes, battle with Resnick. Everything goes great. You win, kill all the bad guys. And he's like, yeah, but you're not Menites. And then they turn and kill you. And you're like, whoa, let's take it easier, guys. Like, come on. Or it's like Fiora 2 is just back there launching Judicator rockets just at the battle you're in. And you're like, hey, what happened? I thought we were on the same side. Like, yeah, we just don't care if you die. Like, oh. It's like that scene in Braveheart where he's like, just shoot over there. Like, but we'll hit them. We don't care.
They're just Irish. They're not Irish, Scottish. They're just the Scots.
It's not like they're people.
Earlier when you were talking about how your Ostrom list is just following the Earthbreaker to victory, it reminds me of the artwork for the Judicator, where it's just walking through.
Oh my god, it's such a good piece of art
with just rockets.
They should have just wrote zero fucks on the front of the Judicator while just like literally just bulldozing the town and just like fire. Like, it looks so cool.
On the tabletop, the entire table is that street.
Yeah,
for the Earthbreaker.
Earthbreaker's good.
Every time I play with the Earthbreaker, people always the reaction. Earthbreaker. I wish there needs to be like a YouTube. Here we go, learn to wargame. Here we go. Like a YouTube, it needs just to be like a Benny Hill playing behind it, like it's just people's face reactions to when you activate Earthbreaker. Just like just like watch them, just like their face contort into a what is what. It does not.
That's what happened when I told Jeremy. Like he had Morvana 2 on a 3 camp behind his objective that granted cover, and nothing
Which
near
meant
her.
Nothing.
Right.
All of those things equated to exactly nothing.
Exactly. So, and then he's literally like 20 inches away from the Earthbreaker. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I got you. And he's like, what? He's like, you got what? Like the Stalker? I'm like, no, I think I can kill Morvana. And he's like, then do it. Like he dared me to do it. I was like, yeah, but I want to keep playing, so I want to know if I can beat you on attrition. And he's like, yeah, I want to go get food. If you can beat me, just beat me. And then we'll go get food. We can come back and play again. I was like, okay. And I killed him. The first shot, I just shot his objective because it was defense 5. I was like, I'm going to do a knockdown shot. Shoot your objective. Knocked him down. It's like, and now 6 shots into you die. And I was like, so did that work? And he's like, I have never been killed that quickly before, I think, ever. And I was like, well, you put her there. Like,
yeah.
20 inches away from my Earthbreaker that ran.
I still like the look on Richard's face when he had him in the mingled metal.
Oh my god. That video is on our YouTube channel. You should go watch it. It's Gordon versus Grim 1 in a 15-point mingled metal game. I've never seen anyone be more angry at the situation they were put in my entire life.
I will have to go look that up.
It was so funny.
The tears of Richard Johnson do sustain.
Because, okay, so we're playing mangled metal, so if your battle group dies, you lose. On, I think it was bottom of 2, I killed his Trollkin bomber that was on a hill, because I just rolled insane. And he was like, okay, well, I guess we can just play this game. And he just picks up the bomber and puts it the same. I was like, let's keep playing. This is fun. I couldn't stop laughing, and we're on a timer, and I'm trying to get my turn done. I'm like laughing hysterically, and Richard just keeps feeding me this stuff the whole time. He's like, Richard, I can't concentrate. He's
you're
like,
bad and you should
he's like,
feel bad.
I'm gonna activate my impaler. Can it remove your Earthbreaker? Like your Earthbreaker just decided to kill my bomber at 20 inches away. I was like, yeah, I think it can. It was so funny. Speculation time. Who's the next ADR casters for the factions we did?
Haley 3.
No, God, that doesn't make sense. We didn't. Okay, maybe.
Well,
all right.
It has to be the new one, right? One of them has to be the new one. Or
I think it's actually going to get screwed over because Lock and Load is what, June?
Yes.
And July 1st is when the new ADR casters come out. And Haley's not actually going to be released until after, but she's going to be in the book before the ADR switches. So I don't know if the new casters are actually going to be legal.
It's when it's released.
We'll see about that. That's why they're holding the Grolar, right? So the Grolar will be legal in ADR when it comes out. Wait.
Oh, did you hear Nigel's rant about that?
Did you, like, it's not even on the release schedule, and the character check based on its CAD design is out! Seriously.
We're not actually going to have any new Warcasters before the new ADR comes out.
Right. So, do you think they're going to keep the same 4 that are currently on it, or switch it up?
I think they're going to switch 2 of the 4.
Which 2?
I think you'll see Constance definitely come off of Cygnar, and then you'll probably see either Cray or Striker come off. Menoth, I think you'll see Resnick 2 and Thyra come off.
Wait, but we're operating underneath the assumption that they take off members that are also still crap.
Right, so the question really becomes, do they keep it at the bottom rung, or do they take the ones off that it's not helping? Because I don't think it helps ADR or Masters as a format if you take the casters that are actually getting played off, because that just makes no one want to play ADR. So I would think the casters are getting played in a balanced portion. Like, when you look at, like, Mercs is a bad example because Ostrom was already getting played, and the other 3 casters, you're literally just taking one as your chump throwaway list. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a bad example. Where like Khador's the same way. Butcher one's getting played, the other 3 weren't, and they're still not. So, but like Cygnar, now Nemo 1 and Cray might be getting a little bit more play. They might take Striker 1 and Constance off and try Darius and Sturgis. Like, and then maybe that generates more interest in ADR for Cygnar, while keeping their biggest interest that was in a valid point
It may not be Sturgis simply because of the fact that they're selling him.
Right. I understand that. I just couldn't think of anyone else that wasn't, like, deservingly good normally. Like, I don't think you can put Kane 1 on ADR. It's possible, but I think he's too good on ADR.
Yeah.
Well, I think that they will. I think that they will try and make ADR overall more attractive as time goes on. In my opinion, I think that they'll do more like Trolls, where you'll have one really good caster on ADR, and then a couple of lesser played but still palatable casters. Mm-hmm. So, like, if even just like on Cygnar, right? If you just straight replace Constance with P. Kane on that list, you'd probably see a lot more ADR.
Oh yeah, but like P. Kane is so solid right now.
But he also is very rarely sees play because he's not very popular in the meta.
Right, because he's not Siege.
Right.
But because he can run into the problem of I can't deal with this armor. But when you throw him 20 points of armor fixing in his specialist, then he can play. So right. I think that would be a good point to bring him in. But I don't know that... I guess they don't really have a power caster on the list, so I think probably Kane would actually be fine now that I think about it. But like neither of the Haleys could ever hit that list. Like, you just have to agree on that. There's no way you can give Haley 20 points of specialist and have it be considered fair.
But I think
Haley is hitting it in July.
The thing is, but I would not be surprised if P. Haley makes it, and the only reason why that would not surprise me is because she does rarely see play, even though she is so strong. Because I do see a few casters like down here that are very strong. That I don't see. Hunter's Graham, Gunbjorn, or Doomshaper. I think all of those are just as strong as a P. Haley list, and there's 3 of them on the troll list. So
I think you're saying that as the person piloting the P. Haley list, and not as the person that has to play against it. I think P. Haley...
I guess.
If they let like P. Haley on the list, like it was P. Haley Kane 1, or P. Haley Nemo 1 even, I think that puts it to a point where you'll see a decent amount of Cygnar running in ADR, but you're guaranteed to see P. Haley. It's like, I don't know that encouraging P. Haley play in the meta is the best way to encourage people to want to go to a tournament that allows ADR.
I guess you're right.
I think casters like you're not going to see Denny 2 on this list because letting her, like Haley 2, Denny 2, Lich 2's fine because he already knows his list. Like, but it's the casters that can do a lot with anything that you can't let them on.
You have to also look at like how a faction is top to bottom their casters. Like Cygnar has some amazing warcasters, but their top is really insanely good and their bottom is pretty bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas Cryx, their top is incredibly good, but their bottom is still pretty good.
Yeah. But at the same time, you can be an amazingly powerful caster and not break ADR. It's all about that you can do anything you want and not that you need things to make yourself work. Like Strakov, if you take character warjacks away from Strakov, is he scary? Like, he loses everything good for him. I'm running a Juggernaut and Destroyer. Like, no one would take you seriously. Like, you just can't. Like, you can't run Ruin, you can't run Beast 09, you can't even run Torch. Like, you're done. So, but it's like Epic Lich, I think, is the best example. Is like, giving him 20 points of specialist doesn't make him more scary. You already know what he's playing. He's playing the Banes, he's playing maybe some Satixis of some kind, and then he's running his Biles, and then anything else he wants. Like, so his 20 points of specialist is really like, I'm going to switch out my 3rd unit. Like, that's really what his specialist is. Maybe change up his battle group. Where it's like Epic Haley, it's like, now you don't know if you're playing against Stormwall Haley or Thorn Haley. Like, that's terrifying. Like, you have no way to build into that. It's like, you might as well just flip a coin and then hope he forgets he's playing specialists. Like, hope this works!
Point.
Like, we're done.
ADR. One thing I just was thinking about, actually, with Haley and ADR, the bond, I don't know if you can actually swap out bonded warjacks with ADR.
You can take the bond. No, you have to leave the bonded jack in. But you can select no bond, I believe. I think bond is May, but yeah, you would obviously pick something.
You could have a bonded jack in you. You couldn't change the bond, I guess is what I'm saying. Right.
The bond would either. Actually, I don't think, because there's something weird about that too. There might be a way around it because of ADR. But I know, like, the Trollkin Sorcerer, client abilities are when you deploy the model, and bond is when you build the list. I'm not sure about that, actually. I assume one of you is Googling it.
I'm kind of looking through the
bond
rules right now.
Bond is a can, so you don't have to
Right, it'd be
a
May. So you could bond a jack and then have it leave your battle group, I'm pretty sure. You just wouldn't get the bond out. Like, it wouldn't be in the list, so it'd be irrelevant. But I know you can't, move things between, if you have a journeyman, you can't move things between battle groups with ADR. It has to be its own model in its battle group that is optional in ADR. Like, when you select it for the list, you have to choose what battle group it's going in or what units it's attached to, and you can't remove attachments. But you can take models out of the battle group.
So you kind of run into, if E. Haley were to end up on ADR, you actually have a serious issue with, her battle group. One of the biggest things you want to do is...
I think you would still probably go Bonded Stormwall and then Thorn in the sideboard, because I think Thorn can survive without the bond, but Stormwall...
Hold on. Are we actually discussing E. Haley as possibly being on this? Because there's no way.
That's
right?
No, well, you have Magnus 2. He has a bond.
Magnus 2 has a bond. That's actually...
Severius 2.
Severius 2 has a bond. Iris 2 has a bond. I could see him being on the list.
Iris could be on the list.
But they have to do something for Khador. No one's going to play Khador ADR. You could just build a good Butcher 1 list, and you've made ADR irrelevant.
Actually, I could see P. Iris.
What would it take for people to play Khador ADR?
Khador ADR? You literally just need another playable caster. I don't even care if you take Butcher 1 off.
Let's say Harkovich gets ripped off that list. Who do you want on there? Karchev?
Let's put it this way. Take 2 of the 3 bad ones, take them out, put anything else in. I don't care what it is, I would play it.
All right, so
I would not play it if it was Karchev, but that's because I don't.
I would definitely play it if it was Karchev.
That's because Karchev gives you just the straightest, most brilliant, cedary, smelly wood.
That's mostly true.
Yeah.
If they took off Zerkova and Harkovich and put on Karchev and Old Witch,
yes.
Would you do Old Witch?
I would do Old Witch Butcher in a heartbeat.
Old Witch Butcher is actually a pretty strong list pair.
That's just a decent list pair before you get into specialists.
Right.
That's a decent list player. 2010.
Yeah. So, honestly, I would probably play Karchev Butcher 1. I would play Butcher 1 if I thought I could win on attrition. If I couldn't, I'd just play Jank Karchev and try and assassinate you. And I'd have fun regardless of what happened.
The problem is, why then aren't you just running something better for Karchev? Because how is Karchev going to be helped by ADR?
You don't even know the secrets in this mind.
We are just I feel like we're getting into the levels of theoretical.
We're definitely just spitballing here. We already talked about our 3 factions we wanted to talk about, so we're just kind of doing some closing talk right now.
I'm not going to lie. After work, I will say this to close for my Cryx thing. After I love Witch Coven, I play him a bunch. I have played with Asphyxius and Proxy. After I made this ADR, I'm going to buy him.
You want to get him on the table, right?
Right. I want to get him on the table. Oh, sorry, I have him actually. I have his stuff. I just want him painted. I'm going to get him painted because I don't paint anything with these beautiful hands, and I'll ruin my hand modeling career. And then I'm going to get it out there. And when does the ADR season change?
July 1st.
July. I want to try to get this to an event where I can use it, because when I got done with it, I was just like, these are 2 casters that I would really like to use doing the things that I like to do in Cryx, which is debuff and run Jax, which is weird, but it works.
I found out I'm not going to be able to go to Daikon. I'm really upset about that.
Well, there's no qualifier this year. So
There is.
What? There's a qualifier? No one told me?
It's on the list.
I'm glad I'm going to Daikon, I guess. I thought they didn't get it this year. Is it still on the hardcore?
I don't know.
I need to work on my hardcore list.
I think that's still one of the qualifiers.
So if anyone's listening to this and it happens to come out before May 2nd, we have a tournament going on here in Kansas City, if you're interested in traveling. It's a cash payout tournament. It's one of the largest, I don't know if it's cash, it's store credit at least, but it's the largest prize support we've had for a tournament in a long time. I think it's $500 total store credit. It's a hardcore tournament. I believe it's May 2nd at the Basement Games and Hobby in North Kansas City. Payout goes to the 4 different awards you can win in hardcore, and it's probably going to be a fun day. It's $20 entry fee, and your lunch is included in that. So, I mean, it's a steal of a deal if you just want to come and play some games, even if you don't want to try and win money or prize support or whatever. Yeah. And so Master Craftsman, Vanquisher, Executioner, and what's the other one?
Eliminator, isn't it?
Eliminator, something like that.
No, it's not Eliminator. I think, or is it? I can't remember the name of it.
It's something like that. I think it starts with an E. Executioner,
Eradicator?
Vanquisher.
Executioner. No, it's Executioner. You're right. Executioner, Mage Hunter, Vanquisher, and
Mage Hunter. That's right. That's why I forgot.
Right.
So yeah, if you can win any of those, you get a good payout. So, and it's just gonna be fun. We're pretty laid back here in Kansas City.
It's $100 for every category except Vanquisher, which is $200.
Mm-hmm. Which is the hardest one to win because I think it's basically best overall.
Yes, it is undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
So one of them is undefeated. The Vanquisher is undefeated. Mage Hunter's killing the most things without killing anything. Sorry, killing the most casters without killing anything.
Executioner is most army points.
Oh, crap.
Yes.
When is Tulsa?
Tulsa is the week before Homecoming, I believe.
Yeah. Because it's Tulsa, Homecoming, then Lock and Load, Daikon. So that's a long month.
Yeah. But anyway, if you're in the area and you want to come play, I do believe you should probably sign up in advance. We might run a little tight on space. I think we're capped at like 36, something like that. Anyway, post in the Mocan. If you're not a member of the Mocan Warmachine group, you should join it on Facebook. I will gladly add you to the group. All right, guys. I think we've pretty much talked everything out. Any rumors on Haley 3?
So it's a unit?
She's gonna be a bitch.
I actually think it'd be interesting. So if she is a unit and she starts the game with all 3 of her versions out, I'm curious if Haley 3 herself will just not have a spell list because of the poison stuff that she's been inflicted with or whatever, and she can't really cast spells. I wonder if that's still going on or not.
She is casting Domination in her art.
I thought that was Haley 2 was doing that.
Yeah, it looks like Haley 2.
Haley 2 is casting on. Haley 3 is just floating and there's energies coming out of her. Right. So, what if she spends her focus to cast spells from the other 2?
The one up at the top is old woman Haley. She has gray hair, and if you look at her face, she's very old. So
you're saying that the one that looks like Haley 2 is going to be Haley 3, and that the other 2 are her future and former selves.
Yeah.
I'm saying that she basically is not at all changed from
Haley 2.
Like Haley 2. Her only real difference is probably going to be minor differences in spell list and name.
Yeah, because she's still like the same rank. It's like,
no, she went to Prime.
Yeah, her
she went up an arcane rank, but I feel like her only difference is I feel like as far as the actual like present day Haley is going to be a slightly different spell list and different feat and different name. That's my prediction.
All right, so we know that Menoth is getting a Paladin caster. We know that Cryx is getting Denny 3. We know that Kador's getting Zerkova 2. And we know that Cygnar's getting Haley 3. So
is it only a one caster book?
I believe so. I'd be surprised if there was 2 in each. I think there's good argument to say that Rhett's going to get Gareth 2.
Cygnar gets 3 casters, everyone else gets 1.
That's true. However, Cryx does get 1 and a dragon scavenger nightmare thing.
No one cares.
It's so dumb. I actually, when I saw her, Denegra is one of my favorite faves, probably my favorite character in the fluff. And when I saw her, I forehead slapped so hard when I saw the thing she was writing, and I realized what it was. When I first saw it, like it was when I saw it on a Facebook post, and the picture was so small, I was like, "Whoa, cool!" She's like climbing on top of a new jack, and then I realized she was writing it.
No!
No, why are your thighs apart on that thing? Which is probably not the first time she's heard that. Showing.
So, what is going to be for Mercs, and do you think Convergence is going to get a caster?
Convergence will not get a caster.
Okay. Definitive statement from Parker that is completely
Well, we know
incorrect.
Convergence is getting a Colossal.
Yeah.
And we know they have a new Warcaster in the card game.
Yeah, there's a new one. It was called like Orion or something.
Yeah,
something weird.
Imminence something.
May actually add him.
He was
They
Death
could.
Star Man.
They could wait as well.
Yeah, either that or in the new
My
book.
guess is that we're going to see... So we're seeing a brand new character in Protectorate. Well, let me start at the beginning. We're seeing a third version in Cygnar and Cryx.
Mhm.
We're seeing a second version in Kador and probably Rhett. So I think we'll see a brand new character in Menoth and Mercs.
Okay. Interesting. I think a whole new Merc caster would be really good for the faction. Because
I wonder if
they're kind of stagnant on casters. Like, when's the last time they got a new caster?
Last year.
Who was it?
Texas.
Damiano was the last
Texas. Well, that's true. Texas was new. Damiano's vaguely recent.
Right before that.
Mm-hmm.
Ostrom was more recent than Damiano.
That's right. Ostrom was more recent.
Damiano was Wrath, and then Ostrom was Colossus.
I am pretty sure for some reason I just had this is just call it a gut feeling. Call it that. I think it's going to be Ashlyn 2 from the card game.
Epic Ashlyn.
Yeah.
Is she going to be not bad?
Epic Ashlyn is in the card game, and as soon as I saw her, I was just like, oh, well, that's going to be...
Well, they also have Epic Gordon.
Epic Gordon would be amazing.
And then there was also a brand new Leolise caster that's currently not in the game. I can't remember his name.
That's true.
So I would not at all be surprised if we saw a Leolise caster for Mercs, whether it's Ashlyn 2 or a brand new one. I would guess a brand new one, but that's only a guess. A completely wild-ass guess.
But more importantly, Venter is coming.
Venter is coming.
Venter is coming. That's so clever.
So
I smiled when I saw that.
As you should have. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the cast, guys.
Thanks
I appreciate it. This has been Brandon.
Jeremy.
And Parker the unpaid.
And Jake the paid.
Oh.
You don't talk about your wages with other employees.
I'm in the military.
They're
Everybody
not
knows
employees
what
or
everybody
contractors.
makes.
That's true. All right. Thanks, everybody. Goodbye. I have to pee so bad.
I'm
So
gonna
do
go to
I,
bed because I have
but
to be at work
it
in
doesn't-
7 hours.
Ooh,
I'm
look,
hungry.
a bottle.
It hurts.
Later, everybody. That was fun.
Just for the record, I have never in my life paid money for Corona. A friend I went to school with once told me about this theory he had. It's like a quantum mechanics theory. It's called the Great Beer Continuum. It doesn't matter if you ever give people beer, because at some point in your life, karma will give it back to you. And everyone is eventually going to be even on beer. It just works out that way.
That is a wonderful way to look at it.
The other way is just not give a shit, because you're too drunk.
I'm that way with liquor, though.
All right, so you tell me how bad my my Magnus 2 list is, so I don't share it on air. You're doing a real bad job of that, by the way.
Who are you pairing it with?
Oh my god, I forgot. He gets specialists. I should probably actually take advantage of that. Wait, there's no reason to, because this list is already... Okay, I'm not sharing. This is terrible. I guess I could swap out crows for boom howlers. If he's playing like a not living army.
All right, what's going down?
Oh, I was just trying to get him to talk me out of sharing Magnus 2 as a list.
Yeah, because you can't really swap out the battle group.
Well, I'm only
should
playing
share it.
tier 2, so the battle group's irrelevant.
Oh.
So, I mean, yeah, in theory...
We know, of course, that it's not as strong as just playing the faction.
That list isn't. So the question is... I mean, obviously, Marks, the question comes down to is Ostrom with specialists better than Ostrom and a good list? That's the question.
I think Awesome and Specialist is actually pretty solid.
Oh, no, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I played it at Omaha, and it was just stupid. I was like, I should lose this matchup. Herb derp, let me take out all my Alarm 11 infantry and put in, like, Hammer Dwarves. And I was like, oh, look, now I'm not bad versus Gators. Like, it was amazing. This is not the specialist list I've played before. But I don't know if it's better or worse. There's no real other solos I want. Ooh, that was it. Let's see here. So, Parker, did you go get some corn nuts?
No, I love ice.
Ah, so you got ice, and that's your beverage?
Mm-hmm. I won't smack into this while we're talking. Tell me when we're talking.
Well, we've been talking this whole time. This has all been recorded.
I know that's not true.
You can not believe me all you want. That's absolutely true.
Wait, I thought we started a podcast with introducing ourselves and whatnot.
But we record before that. It's called a pre-ramble.
This is the pre-ramble.
Oh,
L2 podcast, bro.
look at that.
The pre-ramble is a time-honored tradition.
Yeah, that is some incriminating evidence you have there, then. All right. I think I have everything I need in this list. What do I need for specialists? Here, I'm going to start naming things. Tell me if they're important.
A galleon.
Damn it.
Your specialist needs to be a galleon or in Midwinter.
This is
Oh, I know he already goes in the list already. Was part of the
Ooh, that's a good
theme,
point.
doesn't he?
Oh,
trying to
I'm
remember.
talking about... Yeah, I'm not sharing that list. I'm talking about other stuff now.
I feel like if you're playing Mercs in ADR, at least one of your lists should just straight have a Colossal in your specialist.
One of them does.
Okay. I think that's one of the best parts about specialists is the ability to swap a Colossal in.
I have 8 points to spend on ADR, and I don't know how.
Do you already have...
I think I'm going to put in a second unit of Hammer Dwarves into my sideboard.
He can't take Hammer Dwarfs in his Team Force, though.
I'm talking about Ostrom.
Oh.
So here's my Ostrom list. Let me know what you think. I've got Ostrom Earthbreaker, Eris 2, Anastasia Debray, Gorman DeWolf, Dougal McNeil, Thor, Goblin Teaker, Terran. Then for units, I've got Arcane Tempest Gun Mages with UA, Selena Russell and the Nis Hunters full, and Lady Anna and Master Holt. So it's pretty much everything you could want in the main list. And then the sideboard is 2 units of Hammer Dwarves, so I can pull out my 2 units if they're just doing an armor skew. So if I get... Somehow I list Chicken into, like, Meat Mountain, I'm like, well, this could go bad. I can at least bring in some Weapon Masters. And then to fill the 20 points, I've got Alexia 2 in case she's good in the matchup. I can bring her in. Because bullet dodger on her is really annoying. Unless you have a Mammoth, then you just direct hit her behind a wall. Then that's fine. That happened to me.
I mean, I guess...
I was at Des Moines, and he's like, just trip 6s, does that hit her? I'm like, yep, that oddly will hit her. And then he's like, alright, you die. I'm like, okay.
Why didn't you use Sack Ponyo?
Yeah. She doesn't have Sackbon?
Oh, she sucks.
Okay. But what do you think about that? Was that terrible? Was that good?
I mean, it's bad and you should feel bad, but you could be worse.
You guys got your list squared away?
Yeah, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Jabroni.
Jabroni.
Oh my god. I kind of want to share this list, but it's so fucking bad.
Which one?
Oh, I guess I could do my my Fiona list. I like my Fiona list. It's just bad. I'm not embarrassed by it though.
Wait, no, you wait. It's bad. I thought we decided it was good. But it turns out it's bad.
No, the Fiona list was good. We found out that it wasn't as good as we thought it was because we thought it was fucking broken.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember.
Alexia isn't broken like we thought she was.
Right. That's what it was.
But, I mean, the list still did well, regardless of that. The problem is it's got a very slim margin of what it wants to fight. Which is fine because your other list covers 90% of the field.
Mm.
I mean, to be fair, this probably does pretty well against Cryx as well. Like, what does Cryx do against this list? It's just like all guns and tough troops. I'll probably just share all 3. I'll have a list for every Merccaster. Yeah.
Aren't there 4?
Well,
Brandon, what
obviously Ostrom. He's awesome. What'd you say, Parker?
You also got Shay.
That was me. I was saying, what are you guys recording?
The Audacities.
The Audacities?
Mm-hmm.
How do you set it up for like podcast audio for like to come in through Skype?
So what we do is we've got 2 computers running. There's one that is basically the soundboard. Well, it's not the soundboard. We have a soundboard. Well, it's a mixer, basically. So you guys are calling my phone in this case. Normally it'd be my laptop, but I didn't want to go get it. So I call you guys on my phone, and we plug the soundboard into my phone, and it uses it as an audio source. So the call is... We're being hosted on my phone, and then the other computer is recording the noise being broadcasted on my phone. So it's catching you guys through that, and then we're speaking into mics that feed into the mixer.
Huh.
And then it jumbles them together and spits it out on Audacity.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Do you have to cut that out now? Was that our trade secrets, Jeremy? That everyone uses?
That's not how you'll actually manage.
Considering I shared it with Lance.
That's true. I didn't understand, like, it's not that complicated. How did they not figure that out? Muse is ripping us off left and right. They stole our like thing where we pair it up against other people's lists today. They stole how we do our mixer. Like they started not just using a laptop mic. Like all these things that we do, they stole from us.
They wanted to know our camera setup.
Yeah, they get one of their little spies in on our show one time, and everything we do is gone.
But when Damaris asks,
that's true.
Isn't he like the godfather of the?
No, that's John.
Oh, he's the podfather.
He's the podfather. All right, I take it you guys are ready, Mr. Ice Chewer McNally.
Okay, done.
No more ice.
No more ice chewing.
I will
Got my
drink
fix.
my ice.
Ice chewing. No more.
No more ice chews.
I choose you.
All right, so we're gonna go me, Jeremy, Parker, Jake for introductions,
Okay.
so we don't stumble over.
Do we want to
last.
imitate
Fine.
Max?
Maxwell? He's gone.
No, that's fine.
Hi, this is Max.
Me, Jeremy,
Age of
Parker,
Eagles
Jake.
on the forum. Come there and I'll ban you.
That is what Max says. Jake, just so you know, this time when Parker's done, that's when you're supposed to talk.
Okay, I got it.
I know you were
I just-
confused last time.
I want to be introduced, you know?
Okay.
I want you to introduce
Okay.
I will introduce you then.
Okay.
And then you can follow up by introducing yourself a second time.
Well, that's why we make them humble, right?
Right. Is this 27? 28?
Let's call this 28.
28. That way you can record 27 next week.
Well, no, we already have it 27.
Oh, do we? Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm. And how?
Nope.
Bonjour.
I'm still getting all my lab. Oh, you think?
Okay, no, this actually could be, that actually could work. What I just made actually could work. Interesting. Okay, I got it. Figured it out.
Hold the gots.
No way I can't win. I got the gots.
I think Cygnar's Active Duty is pretty terrible, but it has actually inspired me to play P-Nemo with all the new stuff that's come out.
Nemo has a total game right now. The problem is, here's one of the weird things. If you read Dynamo's card, like the more times you read it, the worse it becomes.
Right.
Because you're just like, the first time you're like, whoa! Then you read it the second time, you're like, oh, well, I guess that doesn't really... Okay, but I mean, there's still some other stuff, and you read it again, you're like, oh, well, that doesn't work like I thought. It's the weirdest thing. It's like, I don't know how... It's like, he's like, reading his card is like reading Star Wars novels. Like, the first time it was really cool, and every time after that, it's worse, and it's worse.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
But no, I think there's a lot of synergies with a lot of the new stuff. Like, I really like the way he synergizes with Gaston with a Vanguard.
Interesting. Gaston with Vanguard. There you go.
Because one of the cool things you can do is that, like, also, I'd never realized this before actually looking at Gaston and Vanguard, but if Gaston has up the whole run and gun thing, if you charge a Vanguard into a bunch of infantry, and if it kills something with its assault shot, after its activation, it can walk away.
Yeah, it's gun sprint,
bro. Yeah, because if it kills a model with assault, it can still walk away. So it's like super anti-infantry yo-yoing with a Vanguard, which is super cool. And then you can also put, disruption field onto a Vanguard because it's friendly warjack.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can stack like disruption field and like you can hit like Ion and Holt putting harm on something. And you can have like a Power Strength 17 Vanguard, which is really cool.
Yeah. And then you just have, 14 Focus floating around there. Like, 14 Focus does work in Warmachine. That's one of the things that I once theorized. I was like, if I got Haley 2 with a Squire, Allison Jakes, and a Journeyman out there, does that just automatically start winning more because there's just 15 Focus on the field and it just happens 15 Focus? Can you deal with that much focus? Like, making my army better. I wondered about that. I wondered about that one day. Like, if I spend it wisely, does it just cause a huge shift? I don't know.
It may.
But that's what Nemo does. Nemo does the same thing. In my opinion, a more complete package probably, because everything, like you just said, is working together much more fluidly.
I think Dynamo is a really good addition. I think Nemo 1 makes best use of Dynamo over any of the Nemos, as in there's more good synergy with Nemo 1. Being able to allocate him, even if you don't allocate all 5, just being able to allocate 4, or you can allocate him 5 to boost that last shot. That's the highest power.
Right.
Like the Silverline Stormguard, that thing gets up to ridiculously high power.
Right.
So I'm just my Dynamo is inspiring me to play Nemo 1. My
Dynamo is being painted right now, and I hope it gets back eventually. I have a Dynamo and a second Stormclad because I really want to try. I never gave E-Strikers only things that kill you army a try. I've always wanted to, where it's E-Strikers tier lists where it's just things that kill you. Like, what do you have? Well, things that hit like trucks, and they get up to armor base 17, so it's hard to AoE them down. So you'll kill a few, but if 7 guys get to you, I might just take your teeth out.
Yeah, and you will kill most, but you probably won't kill enough.
Right. And so, I've thought about playing it. It's because I have the full unit of Stormblades, 2 full units. I have all the UAs. I have a second Stormclad. I have 2 Storm Knight Captains, which really he was waiting for the Storm Knight Captains. The Storm Knight Captains were the thing that made it all work. Because being able to fly through shit and not have to spend points on Rupert for Pathfinder all of a sudden made all this work. So then you can, and he's a fucking weapon master in Cygnar. He kills things way too much.
Yep.
So he really kind of cracked it open an extra 30 degrees, I think, to really allow it to work. But I had never got to do it because I don't have a second Stormclad. You can proxy in Rowdy for it because Rowdy is also good most of the time. But I think a second Stormclad.
Yeah, but you want that 2 inches of deployment zone because one of the whole points is being super aggressive with the advanced move.
Right. Exactly. Because it's a full unit of Storm Lances. Got to have what's her face, 2 Stormclads.
Well, it doesn't have to have Storm Lances. It just has to have 2 Stormblade units, Lattimore, and 2 Stormclads. But you want the second Stormblade unit.
Yeah, I have this 2 Stormblade unit, and I have the Storm Lances because they do enough with him.
Yeah,
they're worth it. And Armor 19 is just a little too difficult to deal with on the way in. So the amount of fire they take is worth not having something else shot. So
because the list because I was actually looking at the same thing. The list that I was looking at was E-Striker, Squire, double Stormclad, double Stormblade Captain, Catherine Lattimore, and then 2 max units of Stormblades with UAs. One of them with 3 gunners, the other with no gunners. And then max Storm Lances.
Would you have at least 1 gunner in the other unit?
What I did was...
Yeah, you probably would, wouldn't you?
I didn't...
Then you still get a bonus.
I did not do Squire, and there's really no reason for that. I just stared at it forever going, what's more worth it? 1, focus on Striker, +2 control... but reroll is so good on that in the damn.
Because Rebuke is such a good spell.
It's so good in Rebuke. So I really debated on it. Was it worth 2 gunners? And it probably is. I've stared at it for a long time, not knowing what to do.
Yeah. It'd be nice if there was a way to fit Silverline in there, but there's not.
Yeah.
Not at tier 4. You could play tier 3 and drop out a
Jake's. You've got to play Horse Striker a little bit, right?
Wait, what's that?
Horse Striker, you got to play him a bit?
I have not played him yet. I have dojoed the shit out of him, though.
Okay. I've been playing him a bunch on the table because I got mine painted and he's so fucking cool looking. It's very, very interesting. What I found out, at least for me, is that he, if it's 35 points or lower, I have not lost even close. He just demolishes 35 points or lower. But for some reason, as soon as it tiers up to 50, what happens is I kill everything. They have 1 boostable gun, and I die.
I was gonna say that's the difference is they can trust Striker.
Right. It's just there's
Butcher 3 in a 35. How do you do a Butcher 3 in a 35 point game?
Right.
He kills your heavy, you lose.
But man, Striker, oh my god, the list is just So
I love the idea of him with Nis Hunters. Like the Striker 3 Nis Hunters combo makes me really hard.
I made Parker a Striker 3 list that was really good, and he hated it.
I hate it. I still hate it.
How-
Stupid, and you should feel bad.
What did it
I
have?
made him a good list. It included like 4 Cygnar models, and he was like, "No, I'm not playing that." I'm like, "But it's good." And he's like, "I don't care." I was like, "Okay."
Wait, a Cygnar army with
I really
Cygnar
want to try him out
models?
with trenchers. I feel like he could do great things with trenchers.
Incorrect.
I like him with Nis. I like him with Trenchers. I actually really like him with the original Stormguard. That's that put them in there. That actually does some really crazy things.
Why the original and not Silverline?
Because what was happening was the automatic hits on the feet were causing me to, light up maybe one model that wasn't already dead for a little bit extra damage from Lancer shots. But when I switched it to regular Stormguard, I vaped one thing. And I got a ton of Electroleaps. Just an absolute metric ton of Electroleaps. Like guaranteeing an Electroleap and guaranteeing the high POW AoE was stronger in my opinion.
You don't drink shit.
How are you delivering them? Because he doesn't provide any movement buffs whatsoever. Or
Generally-
defensive buffs at all.
Generally, Rupert and they have bigger fish to fry. Is generally what happens because everything else is just Is the people look at them and go, they're Stormguard, and then I smack them in the face with Stormguard.
Right.
Hey, guys, just a couple things I want to cover real quick. I noticed that we talk over each other a little bit more than we used to, and I know that's because of Skype, because there's like a half-second delay, so you start talking and you think you're the first one, and then nobody knows who's going to keep talking. So if you're done with your statement, I guess just make sure you leave a nice second-and-a-half pause, because we can cut out the silence in between phrases much easier than people talking over each other.
Okay.
Also, just heads up, we are doing this on my phone. That's right, this call is being hosted from my phone Skype app.
Huh.
We've done it before, it works.
Okay.
And just a second. My mic seems to not be working.
Killing me, Smalls.
Hey, it's better now than after an hour of podcasting and no one can hear me, we find out.
That's true.
Is Max joining the conversation?
I do not believe so. He is on call and he got called into work, so he'll be back at some point, so we'll probably hear him come in in a second.
Ah!
Sorry.
Let me know when you do that.
You're gonna uncrank it.
Yeah, it's better for the mics.
Going in. Going in hot. Going in. Alright. Alright, we're good now.
Do we have 2 seconds for me to grab something to drink?
Nope. Starting right now.
1,000.
Wah, wah.
Alright,
2
we'll wait.
1,000.
Can I
Okay.
interest either of you bros in a Corona Extra?
Yes.
I would want
I'm
that.
You
I'm gonna
only
grab a
have
beer.
to drive to my house.
Hold on, Brandon. We have the internet.
That's true. This is one fine Corona Extra with carbonation.